Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Carolina trying to get it out, turned it over. Engvall alone in front, shoots, he scores! Pierre Engvall has his first ever goal in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Stars go to work, hits across, in front, loose puck, Sagan scored! He did it again on the power play, this time immediately.
2:48 to go in the game. Trae Young against Jaylen Brown. Trae behind the back. Trae shoots the three. And he makes it. And we've tied the game. The Hawks have tied the game, folks. It's 1-11 all with 2:38 to go. Trae Young has just tied the game. He's got 30 on the night.
Devin Booker back on the floor for the Suns. Give it on the side. Kevin Durant. Shazam! KD hits a three. And it's a 3-point lead for the Clippers.
Rebound, Gordon. Gordon in the corner, over to Porter for three.
Yeah! Timeout bench. Nuggets lead it by 4, 196.
Rogers with double barrel action in the bullpen right now as Taylor whacks one to the gap in deep left center field. This ball's back. This ball's gone. Chris Taylor, a 3-run home run, has given the Dodgers the lead. It is 8-7.
Here's the 3-2. Swing the drive into center field. Mullins back at the track. At the wall. Gone! Jaron Duran hits a grand slam to straightaway center field, and the Red Sox lead it 7-0.
It's very nice of Shane Schillerberg to throw Ravi 3 L's. Can I just call you 3L? Isn't that 3L motion?
I mean, that makes it sound like I'm catching a lot of L's, which I don't know that I love that.
A lot of consonants going on.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's better than when my man at Shane Schillerberg says Ravi.
Well, listen, there's, it's funny because when he's talking to me, he says it right.
Just like a regular person, right?
Yeah. I think he's got like, I know we don't like to say the Y word. I think he's got the yips a little bit on the phone.
Yeah.
When he says my name.
Talking to
like
Scott
I'm
Doctor.
a little nervous.
Talking to Scott Doctor.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it'll be DB. Ravi.
You know the funny thing though is
he's Ravi.
Always done that. From the first time I filled in many moons ago.
Yeah. Blue?
It's always been like that.
Belgian white wheat?
No, that's blue moons, not mini moons.
My bad. My bad. One of those Wednesdays already as we welcome you into Coffee and Cream.
I didn't start a
Oh, Lord. What do you want already?
I didn't start a complex on the name there until you thought I said Robbie. And you're like, who the hell's Robbie?
Oh, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's been happening for a while.
I thought he was talking about Margot, and I was like, are you saying Robbie?
You're like, I don't think she's on the show today.
Yeah, like, are we going back? Hey, what's the crazy lady's name the character she plays?
Harley Quinn.
Yes, that's what I thought you were going for. And then I was like, Wait a minute. We're a couple years into this. We should probably be better.
Get this locked down a little bit.
So you're saying I need to get her on the air.
Margot Robbie?
Yeah.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
I mean, I don't think anyone would complain about that.
Would that be closer to the iced blondes?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know what you talk about, but
Kind of like your coffee over there?
That's right. Yeah, I got a little ice blonde latte.
Shout out to the beanery because they do coffee well as well. Go get you a nice smoothie. Like
So you're a smoothie guy, right?
I am.
Smoothie.
Fancy pants like Joe Dierte. Life's a garden, dig it. Hey, Shane, how'd it go with you and Linda Lovelace? You guys good? He's like, who? Oh, yeah, it's a long time ago. Sorry, it's a little early for that. Huh? Life's a garden, man. Dig it. By the way, hopefully your gardens are off to a strong start. As the weather, it's a little more spring.
Getting there. We're getting there.
I kind of, so this is kind of in my wheelhouse.
Are you a big gardening guy?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have a brown thumb, not a green thumb.
Different wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I a gardening guy?
Well, listen, you were like you were talking about gardening. And you're like,
I like green grass. Like
I don't care about my yard at all.
No way, you're that dude.
Listen, I keep it so that it doesn't look bad.
We okay. All right. That's where I draw the line.
No, listen. So I keep it so it doesn't look bad.
You can have bad food takes. You can have bad. You can have bad hanging out with kid takes.
That's not a bad take.
You can have terrible NBA takes. I draw the line at a okay yard.
I mean, it is an okay yard. So a couple of things here. Number one, it takes too much time.
What else are you doing?
I'm a busy guy, Damon.
Well, you do a lot of radio.
We're trying to at least.
Okay, yeah.
It's no, I don't get any. I don't feel like I'm getting any reward.
No
for the time I'm
Mick
putting
Jagger.
In.
No satisfaction.
No, I don't. I'm not one of those people. You know what? We thought it was a little weird that Shane was just like staring at his car for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I know people that will just kind of stare at their freshly cut grass for hours.
On a weird note, do you know who's like that? Who gets weird sort of
satisfaction out of the
creepy vibes over a well done yard?
Taylor?
No.
It feels like Severe would.
Different S. Severe hates yard work, by the way. Like
I think I knew that about him.
Sauter.
Oh, that makes he's like typical suburban white dad. Of course he does.
Like Sauter will send me pictures
of his yard,
of his mowed yard.
That's weird.
How he does his edge ups, his trimming. Like, oh yeah.
But
there's just this weird.
It's also he's the least surprising person that we both know that would be into it.
Yeah, but he doesn't like manual labor.
But every guy that's obsessed with their lawn looks almost exactly like Sauter.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So I turned the sprinkler system back on, and had a young man come do that, and of course, people made fun of me. Like I was trying to get some insight Saturday in Lincoln because I'm kind of around some guys, and Cyril's kind of embarrassed me a little bit because he's significantly taller than me.
He's a big fella,
and he looked at me like I was short when I was trying to because I am compared to him, right?
Everybody's short compared to him.
Explain the sprinkler dilemma.
Okay,
like he looked at me like, dude,
like you're a little brother.
You can't do that. Like,
oh, I have somebody come out and do mine.
You just do this and you're done. And I looked at Keith, man, and Keith's like, hey, I'm not judging, right? I'm not handy either. Kind of took me a little bit of time to get comfortable doing it too.
Yeah.
Like I had, come on, man, YouTube. I was like, guys, I've tried the YouTube thing before. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I'm out there for like 3 hours and still can't fix my garage.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Tried it with the ceiling fan. That didn't work. Like it's very hit and missy.
Yo, yeah, 100%
with YouTube. And sure enough, my man came out yesterday. Can't remember what the scheduled time was. Between 3 and 5, right? So I was there like right on time, and He is probably there all of 13 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's super fast.
But 12 of it was checking that all the heads were good. Like he ran each zone.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that because one didn't come up all the way. And he's like, hey, I could just give you a little bit of an extension. I do this and it's cool. If it doesn't go down, just kind of tap it. Like we don't have to nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay for a new head. So I was like, oh yeah, cool. I'd have never known any of that.
Yeah.
I would have had a dribbler out there in the front yard. Just
make a little puddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I felt better until I got the invoice. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah.
Maybe you should figure out how to do this on
Figure
your
out
own.
how to do this. Should probably figure out how to. And I thought of Cyril's immediately. Right? I was like, because his level of disgust.
Oh, that's how people feel that way about me all the time.
Yeah. Well,
Because-
again, a guy with no kids
Yeah.
and dual income, you're probably okay.
Yeah, I will pay people to do all of the things I don't want to do.
Yeah, that's those guys are in a good business.
Yeah, for sure.
Good business. And I know a guy. He's since long become a professional card player. Sold his sprinkler business long time ago.
Yeah.
And he does quite well.
Well, a lot of it is I don't think it's that hard to learn, but there's enough people. I mean, compared to like being a doctor or something, but there's enough people that don't know how to do it on their own and aren't comfortable learning to do it on their own.
No, I'm with you.
Because I'm that guy. I'm the guy that doesn't know how to do it and doesn't really want to learn how to do it because I don't want to mess up a water line or something in my house. Like I'm real hesitant to try anything with like plumbing or electrical.
So you're the wrong guy to ask. I got to ask one more thing before we get to sports. Like, can I control my own water pressure, or does somebody have to come out and do that?
I have no idea. No, I have zero idea whatsoever.
Because and I can't ask Shane because he lives in an apartment.
I kind of just assume my water pressure is what my water pressure is.
I'd like a little more. My mom has incredible water pressure.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of years ago, the pressure knocked a plate out of my hand. And I was like, this is spectacular.
See, mine like varies. I always thought it varied based on like where you were in the city for some reason.
Maybe. I don't know.
And I don't know if that's true or not.
I gotta get a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Yeah, very, very, very true. As
thank you, Shane.
Huge night of sports.
A lot going on,
man. Nebraska gets the win over Omaha, which that crowd. I was too busy laughing at some of the things that Sharp was saying over the PA. My man went back old school with a Shaniqua reference. I'm sitting. Shane, is that not funny?
Did he really?
So when he said it, like, and I'm hiding, right? I'm well, never mind. And I'm listening because they're doing like this race. This is probably like in the
I think it's like the fourth
or fifth inning or something like that. And he goes, Eddie and Shaniqua, and I looked. And I'm like, I know I don't see that well, but I don't think she's a Shaniqua. But yeah, he went Shaniqua last night. My dude was like, Eddie Romero. I was like,
he's hilarious.
Like, what is wrong with this dude? But 2,300 roughly.
Yeah.
And I think 300 of them were there for Drew Christo.
That seems fair.
Yeah, I mean, local product.
Yeah, absolutely.
He has some experience with Tal Anderson Field.
Had a really nice outing.
So quietly,
like,
I was cheering for him.
Yeah.
There were three things I was very, very, very excited for.
Okay.
Coach Crutchfield, being a three-sport athlete.
Sure.
Looked like he could maybe pitch. We know he's a football guy. He coaches basketball.
I would have really loved it if he got up on the rubber.
Yeah. I know.
Be in front of the mound thing.
Listen, I get it, but being on the bump, so it's two things. Number one, that thing, you need your ACLs. If you haven't been on it, don't do it.
Yep.
Number two, the Fields crew, like Ethan and those guys, which is a whole funny story. Ethan, I won't get into that, but it probably don't want you on the mound because guys are actually gonna be.
You're
on the
okay
mound.
as long as you don't try and like dig in.
Yeah. Oh, so no, just don't scuff it up.
Yeah, just stand there, do your thing, or stand like directly in front of it, so it looks like you're on the rubber, but you're not actually.
Got you.
Because he was pretty much on the flat ground.
Yeah.
Which listen, I get that's a safe move.
And quietly, he's like Mac, much taller in person.
Yeah. All of those former basketball players are
much taller in person.
People don't realize that they're all giants.
Yeah, he had on a sweet suit at the Jet Awards. I was like, dang man, who does your clothes? But anyway, so him kind of being a 3-sport athlete, football, basketball, and he acted like he could pitch.
Yeah.
Frankie Fiddler had on a jersey that I want.
Okay.
I don't wear jerseys. I don't think grown-ups should wear jerseys. He probably is about to cut off because he's still a student.
In college, yeah.
It was off the chain.
What was it?
So it was like old school Nebraska, and then it said Omaha underneath with the little script.
Okay. And
he had it on with like some shorts, so it was kind of untucked. It was fantastic. So I would keep, because I like Omaha gear. Like I got some old Omaha sweatshirts and stuff like that. So I'm like, he's younger than me. I can't ask him for that. Although I would, right? Like I'd be like, hey, Frankie.
You ask him where he got it at least.
Hey, where'd you get that? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And then the other thing was seeing Drew Christo have the outing that he did.
Pitch well, yeah.
Because I quietly, I really, 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 really cheer for him.
Yeah.
Because I love the family.
For sure.
Like, Monty is my favorite nondescript former Husker. Like, no doubt about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just a great person. So, yeah, man, that was good.
Yeah.
The association was good. I know
Hawks staying alive.
I know you hate Trae Young.
It's not that I hate him.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It is too.
People get I hate Russell Westbrook.
Hey, how mad was he early last night?
Russ
has some issues.
He does. I don't hate Trae Young. There's some problems with Trae Young, right?
Like Tatum just going at him for a potential game winner.
Well, so
him falling down.
That was Derek White, right? I think.
It was White. It was White because he made the 2 free throws.
Yep.
I didn't realize White was shooting 89% from the foul line.
White's had a really good year.
Yeah,
he's been better than Marcus Smart.
He looks like a cartoon character.
A little bit,
but he hoops a little.
Missoula doesn't play him as much as he should because I guess Marcus Smart's like their culture guy. I don't know, whatever.
Dude, so are Missoula and Bob Kraft just boys?
I guess
Kraft can sit anywhere he wants.
He
practically was on the bench.
He's got a strange friend circle. Bob Kraft does.
So he's super. No, I know what you want to say. Like he's super hip for an old guy.
I don't even know if hip is the right word.
No, he's hip. Have you seen it?
I mean, I've seen him hang out with like Meek Mill and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if he's hip
he's
or
a 70-year-old billionaire and he's chilling with Meek Mill.
So here's what I wonder though, right?
Meek Mill has spent time in the joint. FYI.
I'm aware.
Free Meek Mill.
I remember. I wonder how much of it's like, oh, these guys actually think he's cool, or they feel like they can learn something from him.
So you realize he wears like torn, faded jeans.
No, I know which is a tough look on a 70-year-old.
Dude, why is it always got to be tough with you? Can't you be a little more inviting?
Listen,
everything is tough. Tough hangs.
I'm okay. I'm okay with people wearing whatever makes them comfortable.
All right, Judgy McJudgy here.
I'm not judging. I'm listen. If he's happy wearing that, if it makes him comfortable, whatever. You're a billionaire. You
can do what you want.
You can do whatever you want, right? If it were me, probably not the look I'd go for at that age.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's a little bit like
although,
it's almost a little try hard.
Although I know this, I feel this about you.
Yeah.
If at 70 and you have as many commas in your bank account, you will not only wear dog-faced gremlin wedding rings, you will wear whatever you want to.
For sure. I get that. It just feels a little like he's trying too hard to be young and relevant still.
I like Bob. So the association was good.
Yeah.
My Edmonton Oilers, who I was worried about 6 days
They're
ago.
Clicking.
I need them to make a run.
They put it on them last night.
Suns advance. It's a lot going on that we'll catch up on. The portal.
The end of that Suns Clippers game was weird.
Yeah, here comes the sun.
Do.
Yeah,
Big George Harrison guy.
Is that who sings that song?
Yeah.
Nope. No, I didn't even know. I had no idea.
Former Beatle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shane, you talk. That's the guy you like, right?
It's the Beatles that do that song. Yes.
Well, isn't there a George Harrison story for you? Did you
Uh,
tell me he was like the low key most popular one, or something like that? I remember this from our former life.
no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's a different Shane.
Yeah, it's a different Shane.
Oh, man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Can't stand that dude.
Different Shane. Just yeah.
Let's. Are we going to take a phone call in the first segment?
Might
Let's
as
go to
well,
my
yeah.
man. Since we continue to be all ethnic all the time, let's go to my man, Asian Wyatt. Wyatt, you can tell this is going to be a wild Wednesday. What's up, buddy?
What's up? How you guys doing?
Just hanging in there. I apologize for sending you that recipe. I wasn't insinuating anything.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, hey, this is a great looking recipe, and then all of a sudden, some sesame oil shows up. Like, oh, okay, I get it now. That's why you sent it to me.
I did not send it because it was Asian persuasion, Wyatt.
Wow.
Anyway, what's up, buddy?
Hey.
You want to hear some more bad Ravi NBA takes?
I hear that all the time. But first, because it's good hearing you guys together again. Nothing against the old players. I don't want to quantify that, but just yeah.
You like it? You like it? You like Ravi? I like Ravi. Ravi's a good person.
I don't want to fight Ravi, just verbally. But
what poor take are you going to get on him about now?
Let's do it.
No, just because going back to the your NBA greats. I'm not his biggest fan, but I always think that Kobe always gets overlooked on this.
He absolutely does.
And I would probably, this might be my bias because of the South Beach thing, but I would probably personally, I would have Kobe over LeBron, especially situationally if you're talking about like an end of a game type situation.
Although I listened to a very spirited argument on the way home last night between Chris Broussard and Rob Parker, because Rob Parker does not think LeBron is clutch. So he gave some situational stats for Los Angeles. Broussard hit him with some more situational stats over time. I think the clutch thing for LeBron is overstated.
I agree.
I think he's kind of clutch. Now Kobe was too.
But Kobe also, if you took small sample sizes, there would also be sample sizes of Kobe's career where the numbers didn't look good in clutch time either.
Yeah. Asian Wyatt, should I feel bad for it taking me like 6 years to even like Kobe?
No, because it took me a long time to warm up to. I wasn't a Lakers fan, but in terms of legacy and everything.
See, mine went backwards. I liked Kobe right away, and then as his career progressed, like the last few years, it was kind of tough to watch sometimes, especially after the
tough with you.
It was tough to watch.
I don't even know if we're going to be friends. Why?
And I kind of liked LeBron early on, and then as time went on, then I kind of grew less on that in comparison.
See, mine's like a U curve. I liked him a lot early, and then kind of in the middle, I don't know about him, and then I kind of have come around on him a little bit.
Wyatt, who's your NBA team?
Let's see, are you talking about positions or just all time?
Just all time.
Okay, so probably Jordan.
Your
and
fave?
Then, yeah, you can say that, but it's not like I'm worshiping at the tower of that either. Gonna have Magic on there.
Smart. You like winning.
I'm probably gonna put Kobe on there.
Okay.
And
you strike me as a Duncan guy. You're not a Duncan guy?
No, I do like because he is way overlooked.
Yeah.
Because of style, and if we're talking about like you're saying you need to have a forward, then I definitely would put him on there. For center, because it's the whole Wilt is the pure
bucket getter
just for his position individually, but if you're talking about the team player, then you're probably gonna have to put in Russell.
Oh, we don't know if we can be friends.
Who's yours, Cream?
Yeah.
But no,
I'll take
but
Kareem
probably
over Lulla.
not.
I want Kareem or Hakeem.
Yeah.
Hey, so
How big a light?
You know what? I probably put.
Wyatt, I know you're going to laugh at me, but off air we were having this great debate over this awkward Chinese restaurants. Ravi had a birthday dinner, and his mom likes to go to this particular place in Bellevue, but his favorite place used to be off 132nd and Center, which was my favorite place, which was
House of Hunan.
House of Hunan.
That's where we went to as growing up.
See?
Yep.
Kindred spirits,
Yeah.
Wyatt. Appreciate you. Back after this, we'll set the lineup.
Wait a minute.
Who knows what kind of Wednesday with Ravi Lulla on Coffee and Cream next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes.
One-0 pitch. Drilled to left field. Going back is Cam Frederick, looking up, and it is gone. Matthews drives it out of here. 15th home run of the year, and the Huskers extend the lead to 6-2.
The 1-0. That one's well hit, crushed into left field. No doubt about it. Matthews gets his first hit of the evening. And it's a solo shot to left field. Score now 6-2 Nebraska.
Hits a shot downfield, and the catch is made. Out the afternoon, we'll visit later on with Cordell Stewart as the PAT is blocked, and it's scooped up. And they can return this. It's a live ball. Jeremiah Brown bringing it back the other way for 2 points for the defense. Do we factor that into our scoring system?
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
1-0 pitch. Drilled to left field. Going back is Cam Frederick looking up, and it is gone. Matthews drives it out of here. 15th home run of the year, and the Huskers extend the lead to 6-2.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream live from the H&H Chevrolet Studios. Ravi Lulla filling in for, I think he's still with us, Andrew Rogers.
As far as we know.
We are live from HVC, our studio. Shane's over there in his little contraption, sitting behind thousands of dollars of equipment
It's
back
a
there.
Charlie Brown house.
Man, when I grow up, I want to be that guy. Fantastic show coming up today. We'll be all over the place. Weird, imagine that. But we're productive. So we get Husker BC. We get Brian Christopherson at 8. We'll talk to Andy Kendeigh. We'll talk to Brian Howell and make sure that we get our Colorado fix.
Got to.
Wow, I can't wait to talk to Howell at the 9 o'clock hour. And we get Louie Vaccher, who will talk Northwestern, who was in town yesterday.
Yeah, making some visits.
Yeah, Northwestern and Missouri.
Oh,
spending a lot of time at 89th and Pacific.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all getting interesting. This whole it is. I can say this being all in right now with summer basketball and AAU and the 3SSB tournament that was here this weekend, and then saying what's going on with recruiting. College football recruiting high school players is vastly different than college basketball recruiting high school players.
Okay.
Even though there was an embarrassment of riches of head coaches this weekend at the Iowa Westfield House. Good on Adidas and
which we weren't totally sure we were going to get a lot of head coaches
right,
this
especially
weekend.
In the spring, right?
Yeah,
because
they're hosting so many portal visitors, the whole thing.
Nebraska doing a really good job, double dipping, like having some guys visible,
splitting their force a little bit.
Some guys hosting Salas, which all of a sudden people feel good about now. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see. A lot of local questions.
You in a good mood or what?
Yeah, I talked to him. He had me in tears last night. There's some Wake Forest tendencies.
Okay.
A lot of questions being asked locally. My barber, because Hunter's dad and I are back to back in our hair appointments.
Okay.
My barber played for Forbes in junior college.
Oh, okay.
So you're talking early 90s.
Yeah.
And as we know, Forbes is at Wake Forest. They had an in-home. So there'll be a lot going on with Hunter Salas. We'll see how that lands. And but again, like high school.
So when you say there's a big difference, what are some specifics?
So colleges are still recruiting high schools fairly hard in football, right? Just had a conversation with a Division I head coach yesterday. It was not Coach Rule, that talked about these availabilities and his staff kind of bringing names to him and how hard it is to parse through, because quality over quantity is a thing in the portal.
Sure. Yeah.
And it has to fit the culture. And he said, it's not like people think. He's like, sometimes people think it's like grocery shopping. He said it really isn't. He had no idea how Deion was going to fill 60 some odd scholarship spots.
I don't think anybody knows.
So he thinks that they could roll in against TCU and have 50 guys on scholarship.
Yeah.
Which, and maybe he's on a year 2 plan, but then, we kind of thought, it doesn't really fit Deion's.
That's not really the vibes he's been giving off.
So,
yeah.
Maybe it's a checkers chess thing and he knows what he's doing. And I think football is different than college, because college, those guys do wait on the portal. There were 2 guys. I came right from the spring game to the 3SSB tournament, and I had on Nebraska gear. And I was sitting in the media section close to the coaches. So 2 dads, one knew Ron Kellogg. So he knew Ron Kellogg and Cedric Hunter. So this was a small world. So he just comes over And I hadn't said a word, and he's like, hey, you know, who you watching? And I was kind of telling him the story, and so I think he assumed I was with Nebraska, but I just said I was watching what I was watching, right? So he starts talking about, you know, how playing with a guy, because he's a Kansas guy. He's like, oh, you know, Ron Kellogg and Cedric Hunter. And I said, yeah. I said, so I shot Ron a text, and I was like, hey, you know, this guy's name, this is what he told me to call you. And, you know, and I said, oh, you know, Cedric's got twins, and they're really coming along. Could play soccer, could play basketball. He's like, no way. And so his buddy comes over, and he's like, hey, looking for a guy? Just decommitted from school blank. Let me send you his video. Listen, I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Right. Good player.
Yeah.
Like I'll like good player.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you can get his buddy too. I was like, really? I asked Oklahoma Tide. I was like, hey, I need Nate's number.
Yeah.
Immediately sending YouTube video over to Nebraska's coaching staff. I was like, it was like, there's no shame, right? I'm trying to help out the state school, right?
I get that.
Well, it's just weird how I find myself in these positions. So so all weekend he was like my bestie.
Yeah, this guy is just like hanging out with you.
Oh yeah, both of them. And I mean, I'm telling, like
that's funny.
And I'll show you the combo between Coach Lesnar and I. It's just like, because I had just seen him in Lincoln.
Yeah.
He's like, hey man, you know, great catch, and I was just like, you'll never believe this. This is a small world.
Yeah.
Right. So because there's always a backstory. It's like, why are we talking about these two particular guys on the AAU circuit? And I was like, maybe I just have an approachable face. I doubt it. They're probably like, why is this dude sitting by himself in the corner on some random folding chair, not talking to anyone?
Right. Because that's my vibe.
You're right. I'm sure I looked real approachable. Kind of like hiding out last night. Let's talk to my main man. We text a ton. Now I get to hear his voice finally.
Oh man, I mean, there's
Cody. Good morning. Welcome to the show. How are you, Cody?
Good morning.
Are you not building houses? Like, what are you doing?
Well, my first concern of the morning was if you found an electrician.
So no, but my buddy Milliken said if I got the faceplate for the timer, he thinks he can put it on for me. So,
all right, well, there you go.
He said, I think it's only... So, Cody, you'll get a kick out of this. He had me go down in my basement and take a picture of, like, my... What do you call the thing?
Like your circuit breaker?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has all the switches.
All the switches, yeah.
He goes, send me a picture. So then he calls me, and he's like, it's not tripping a circuit, so I don't think there's a short. So then he wanted me to send him a picture of the plate, and he's like, take that to the store. I think it's only about 3 wires. I think I can handle that for you. So I feel a lot better about that, Cody. So I'm good there. Now, can we talk water pressure, or do you not want me to waste your phone time?
No, you're good. A couple things I just wanted to hit on. Are you excited to watch Rulon Gardner today?
I am. So Jernigan and I had a coaches meeting Monday night with the staff, and I felt bad for Coach Lamanji because Journey and I, all we could talk about was Rulon Gardner. Tough draw, though. Tough draw.
Yeah. But he got seeded. That's what's wild.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen. So how about Tanner Farmer? How about Tanner Farmer's seed?
Yeah, but have you been watching Tanner the last couple of years?
Yes.
I mean, he's only getting better.
I said to Journey, I said Farmer is legit.
Yeah.
Rulon Gardner's 50. He's 51, Cody.
Yeah.
Do you know where he's living? Do you know where Rulon Gardner is living?
Wyoming?
St. George, Utah. Google it.
Really?
Yes.
There is actually. Isn't that where Weber State is?
You know what? That might be it.
I think it is.
Yeah.
You junkie.
Yeah.
You little junkie.
No, I got to keep up, on where my Montana Grizzlies are playing every year now.
That's right. There's a Genitone reference. Well played.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So then the other thing I wanted, how nice was it to see Drew Christo finally look comfortable after?
Oh my gosh! Like I was doing.
I know that's your guy.
In my head, I was doing cartwheels. Huge contingency. He had great command. He was throwing his secondary pitch for strikes. And you know what? He'd have been super if they make that play in left field because I think it was misplayed.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he's hanging goose eggs. He was sharp.
He was.
Yeah. What do we got to do to get Eddie T to broadcast the game at UNO?
I don't know, man. I was still tripping off Sharpie last night.
All right, last thing to make the music
Be
is
good. You text me anything else you need, man. You're kind of like my secret informant. You know I appreciate you.
Oh, don't worry. I got to give you a call after the show about what we've been texting about.
You got it, buddy. Coming up, Ravi and I will talk some more sports.
Probably.
On Coffee and Cream. Shane over there holding it down. We'll keep this thing together. Be back next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Less than a minute to go. He goes to the right hand, stops, goes again, jumper. No good. There's a stop. Slow down. Jokic gets it across the timeline to Porter. Everybody hang on here. Jamal Murray puts it on the floor in the paint to Jokic. Hook shot. Got it to foul! Denver leads it by 4, and Karl Anthony Towns fouls out of the basketball game.
God bless the Homer broadcasts. Love a Homer broadcast.
Actually, they're a lot easier to do on radio than Big
100%,
Ten Network.
100%.
If I want to high five Greg Sharp, damn it, I'm high fiving him.
Well, I was talking with
Wish they
Anna.
would have scored a few more touchdowns.
Well, yeah, that might have been nice. More high fives. Just yeah, we got it. Scored.
Dude, he had.
Do not call timeout.
I had my the little thing you put in your my
earbud.
Yeah,
yeah.
In because I wanted to hear some of the radio broadcasts last night. He had me crying. I'm telling you, he is low key funny.
Yeah, the time we had him on was the first time I had talked to him.
Yeah,
and it was a good time.
Yeah, they have a very good chemistry. I do the pregame football show, so I get those guys. I watch their act.
Yeah,
back and they rotate right I think it's probably every 2 or 3 innings. They switch.
Who's the play-by-play?
And it's just I laughed out loud a couple times.
Yeah,
looking around, I'm like, are you talking to me? I can't hear. I have my my AirPod in. Yeah, I'm that weird guy. I know I can see it right in front of me. I'd like to hear.
Well, listen, you got to know what's going on.
I do, man. And I like different vantage points.
Yeah.
Kind of like the one that Trae Young hit.
It was a good shot
last night.
It was a good shot.
Dude, were you like, what is he doing?
No, I figured he was going to do something like that.
With the leg flail, the whole nine?
Well, it's kind of always what he does.
Dude, the shiver cold, he gives it to the crowd.
He does. So I texted you about Trae Young before, in the first quarter of the game yesterday. Yeah. So before any of this happens, he ends up with 38 points as the game winner, whatever, right?
Yeah, keep in mind, the Celtics are up double digits under 6 to play.
Yeah, a horrible collapse by the Celtics. I mean,
it was low double digits.
Oh, still.
I'm just saying.
And Marcus Smart.
First of all, this dude chiming in like Big Ben. It was 13 or 14 with 6 to play. Yeah. You're at home in a closeout game.
That's low double digits.
Are you vouching for that?
Oh, no look past Griezel to.
But so I mean, Boston did plenty of things to dribble that game down their leg. Marcus Smart,
was he on the take?
Out there just doing Marcus Smart stuff.
Dude. Tough.
And then you got Jaylen Brown mouthing, what is he doing in the backcourt?
Could you play with Jaylen Brown? Micah loves him.
I would rather play with Jaylen Brown than I would Marcus Smart.
What about Brown or Tatum? Obviously, Tatum higher ceiling, but who would you rather play with?
I think Brown.
Kind of me too.
He doesn't need the ball
because
as
of
much.
the stuff that Tatum settles for.
Yeah, and so Jaylen Brown seems like he attacks when there's an advantage to attack, right? Offensively, I think he's better defensively than Jason Tatum. That's not a hot take.
We got lots of those.
Well,
you want to look at the Rays record again?
I can't believe that.
I feel like that record isn't real.
It doesn't look real. They're 20-4 when you're reading down. I was checking over the scores from last night, and I'm like, that doesn't even look like a real number.
Are you kidding me?
Exactly. I'm fed up.
But no, I think I'd rather play with Brown. He seems like a better he seems like a better guy to have if you ever want to see the ball.
Well, I'm fed up.
Is that fair?
Oh man, your delivery cracks me up. Yeah, that's fair.
If you ever want to be a part
of Tatum does shoot some dribble, pull up, dribble,
yeah,
dribble, random three.
Some just kind of inexplicable, except for I'm Jason Tatum, I can do whatever I want type shots.
Yeah.
But no, so I texted you last night about Trae Young early in the game. And it wasn't even really about what was going on in that game necessarily, although it kind of...
I think that had to do with the fact we've been talking about him low-key, about your disdain and how he can't guard anyone.
Well, he can't
Was that the catalyst?
No, I mean, that was part of it. And then I'm watching the game early last night, and I'm kind of watching him, some of his shot selection, some of how the offense runs through him and things like that. And he's a talented guy. And he's not my favorite. You say I hate him. I don't hate him.
Hate's a strong word.
Hate's a strong word.
Disdain?
Disdain's still pretty aggressive. He's not for me. We'll just say that.
Like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, or a different type of not for you?
Different type, because I'm not sure on the. I mean, if you want to go back to when he was drafted, maybe in the same neighborhood as a Will Levis.
The great debate. Remember those days?
Right. In that I'm not sure. I wasn't sure I was going to translate from college to the pros.
Yeah.
And now it's different because I don't know what those two guys are going to look like. But I texted you this kind of question about we should talk about the difference between being talented and being useful.
Yeah.
Because Trae Young is absolutely talented. Nobody who has ever watched basketball can look at that guy and be like, he has no talent. That's silly. But if your goal is to win an NBA championship, which I assume that's the goal of everyone in the league, right? I don't know how...
There's a better poster child than Trae Young.
I don't know how useful he is.
They're in a similar vein. And he played last night.
Who's that?
Talented versus useful. Who am I thinking of? Played last night. Puts up a lot of stats. Doesn't win a ton, though.
You talking about Westbrook?
No. Took a picture with this guy in Vegas. He was so nice to me. I hate to even say this.
Talented besides Westbrook, besides Trae Young, who played last night.
Kenny.
Who are you talking about?
Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Is that not Karl Anthony Towns?
Yeah, he's the big man version of Trae Young.
Like,
or Trae Young's the guard version of Cat.
Now, if you move Cat, you look like a ding dong. But what are you winning with Cat?
Nothing.
Right? Because he's mind-boggling. He is a supreme talent.
Yes, 100%. I was talking with our guy Brandon about this yesterday.
Supreme talent.
Yes. He is, and he puts up good numbers. He puts up good stats. I don't know how any of those stats contribute to winning, because it doesn't seem like they do.
It's crazy.
Because you would assume, and people do assume this, hey, if he's putting up 28 points a game and 12 rebounds, that has to contribute to winning in some way. And my answer is no, it doesn't. There's going to be, especially in the NBA today, 110 points are going to be scored by somebody. Okay? Somebody's going to get 25 to 30 of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be 50 rebounds brought down. Somebody's going to get 10 to 12 of them, right? If you're getting the opportunities, the stats are there to be had, especially if you're a talented guy like Karl Anthony Towns. It's kind of the same way.
Talented versus useful. That is fantastic.
Because and Trae Young's kind of the same way, right?
I'm with you.
Super talented guy.
I'm with you.
If he's your best player, what does that get you?
Sometimes
I don't think it's anything.
Sometimes I think a receiver's like that too, but they need help.
Yeah, football is harder to isolate, right? Because there's so many interconnected pieces. There is two in basketball, but not to the same degree, right? It's so hard to separate. Okay, is this like Larry Fitzgerald? Probably one of the most talented receivers we've ever seen. His numbers aren't going to reflect that to the degree they could have.
See, I actually think he's just the opposite.
Okay.
Because I don't think he was uber talented.
I don't think he had the uber measurables. I do think he was uber talented.
But he was super duper useful.
He was, but it's harder to quantify that because his numbers.
He's an HOFer without winning. Well ahead of
which
guys.
Is hard to do.
Yeah. Right?
And his numbers would have reflected even more dominance if he had functional teams around him his entire career, which he didn't.
So that's funny because the talented versus that's going to stick, kind of like the simple versus easy.
Yeah, because there's so many guys that we look at that are hyper talented, and we assume that it will lead to winning. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times it doesn't. I mean, I'll go even closer to home for a guy that I was in on early.
If you give this example for Creighton, I'm going to leave because
no.
Okay,
I'm staying NBA here
because there's the guy I was thinking of.
I'm staying NBA here.
I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Luka Doncic.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know. You've been out on him early.
Yeah, don't. Get
and I
started.
stayed in on him longer because I like being right about things, and I was super right about the talent of Luka Doncic.
will never win anything playing like that.
No, it's
Ever.
the same thing we saw with Harden, right?
Yeah.
So, and Trae Young's kind of the same way. If Trae Young decided to change how he played basketball, there's a chance that he could contribute to winning in a greater way. But
do you know what he shot last night?
Like 13 for 33.
I think he was 14 of 33.
He had 38 points on 33 shots. I have no interest in that whatsoever.
But they got a dub.
They did. They got a dub. A dub.
Who were we talking to? Was it Edwards that thought that Hunter could be a movable piece? I actually like DeAndre Hunter.
I do too. I think he can be useful. He's less talented than Trae Young. I think he can be
remember
useful.
coming out of Virginia, he wasn't supposed to be able to score. Like they felt like his game had peaked. I don't know about that.
No, I don't think anyone's offensive game ever peaks at Virginia.
That's Isaac Trout. Come on down, baby.
Come on home.
Hey, by the way, haven't we seen this before with the Celtics, where they just can't finish it out?
No, he's a Celtics guy.
Where they just can't finish it out. Where Jason Tatum is. I mean, if you
Shane, are you mad first of all, or is this an honest, objective take?
just an honest, objective take. I mean, we saw it last year.
I'm a little concerned about Missoula in situations like this. There were times throughout the year I didn't love his decision making, and Marcus Smart being out there over Derek White, who's had a better year and has been playing better all year, cost them last night. Marcus Smart cost them last night.
Yeah, he was on. So there were a couple of takes for some guys that I follow on social media that were insinuating that Smart was on the take.
It looked bad. It was that bad.
He wanted another chance to go to Atlanta.
Magic City.
Wow. Oh, we'll settle this thing down with Mr. Smooth as Malanta, Brian Christopherson from 24/7 Sports, coming up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
One of the greats. I just call him BC. You may call him Brian. He's pretty personable, so you may want to hit him with a little BC. From 24/7 Sports, he joins us in his usual time slot. BC, good Wednesday morning to you.
Salutations.
See, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, right? Just like, it's all about the delivery. Most people say that it's not funny.
Not delivery, it's DiGiorno?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
BC says it, I laugh. B, how are you this morning? It's pretty nice weather.
Yeah.
Grass is starting to turn green. We're feeling pretty good. You have any dandelions, or are you on point?
No, I got dandelions. That's going to be a problem throughout the week. But the portal sort of being attached to like this, keeping a track of the portal is it's not exactly why I went to journalism school way back when, but that's where we're at now.
BC, I'm going to say this, and it's kind of on a hunch, so you don't have to go with me here. But it seems like Nebraska's numbers entering the portal could be substantially smaller than we maybe would have thought coming in, right? We saw Smothers and Torres and Victor Jones. I get it. But I don't know about this mass exodus. It's on the surface. It seems like a place people want to be and be around this staff. Is that a reach?
No, I mean, you still have to somehow, some way have a scholarship limit down to 85 at some point.
Well, remember, he's got the 10 in his pocket.
Yes. But I agree with the point you're making. It's not the same deal where I had this feeling like on Sunday and Monday, like, oh man, there's going to be like 15 guys at the door. You know, it just doesn't seem like that's been the vibe around there. And I think a big part of that is people can say I'm brown nosing or whatever, but that's fine. I think
you got no skin in the game.
I think
my nose is the one that's brown.
That's for different reasons.
All right.
Stop it. Says the other brown guy. You can't do that.
I'm not going to comment on any of that.
It's okay. Hey, man. That's Ravi being Ravi. Put him in the corner.
No.
Jerk.
I feel like guys over there really thought everybody got a fair shot, like with the reps, and it was really well distributed. And you know, it's like if I'm somewhere where the competition is truly open, and I'm seeing around me that there's guys like a John Bullock, you know, and there's guys that, you know, who are showing like, hey, they can move up, and this staff isn't just categorizing it like this guy was a scholarship guy, he's going to be a starter and this and that. It's been a fair fight, I think, over there. And I think guys see it, and that the film is talking to the coaches, and that's what's going to say everything. And when you have that sort of environment, I think it makes it more so that guys can accept their fate. Like if you get that one-on-one and you're told, hey, you're third team right now, it's because a lot of guys usually, I would think, understand that, Damon, why they're there, like, or why this guy is a few rungs up the ladder on ahead of him at that point. So I think because of the way they've gone about it, and also Rule has talked very much so about, I'm focused on this team right now, not the portal. And I know people took that as he was, thinking about other people when he said that, but I think he was talking very much to his team right there.
Absolutely.
And the people on campus. And that was the main point of that.
BC, I will bring up the other people that they thought Rule were talking about with that comment. Is it too simplistic to draw a straight line and draw straight conclusions from the number of guys that have kind of left Nebraska under a first-year head coach who's trying to rebuild there, and the number of guys that have left Colorado under a first-year coach who's trying to rebuild there? And going back to what you said, people at Nebraska feel like they're getting a fair shake, whereas basically the first thing that Dion said to most of his team was, most of you aren't good enough. Is it too simplistic there, or how do you take that?
I think that matters. And I'm not saying Deion Sanders can't in the long term have success.
It still
there.
work, right?
Yeah, but he talked over his team, didn't he? I mean, that's what he did there. He has a group in front of him, and he's talking about what the party is going to later. And I just can't think that the guys in the room take kindly to that. And I know they're not. I mean, this is more than just what's going on there is more than just like a overhaul. They're basically going to be back at square one with spring football in August now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they basically negated whatever spring football they had because you have a completely new group. And I'm not guaranteeing anything for Nebraska, but they're not at this point, I don't think they're a bad team to have on your non-conference schedule. I'll say that much.
Let me ask, okay, let's follow up since we're going there. I don't love what's going on at Minnesota either, right? We've got the co-coordinator thing, on offense. The staff kind of swapped out. Now, Rossi's a stud. Dan Collins, those guys are good on the defensive side. They had another portal entry the other day, the linebacker from Michigan State, Tank Brown. They've lost a lot of good players. These are Nebraska's first two opponents. Are we best minding our own business, taking care of our own house, or is there something going on, do you think, that's advantageous in these first two games?
I think within the walls of Nebraska, you just mind your own house and you pay no attention to what's going on over there. And you hope with what you do over the next 4 to 5 months when you show up there, it's good enough, and especially in the trenches. And that's where I have to dive deeper into Minnesota, but I do know on the surface though, there's some key dudes that are not going to be easy to replace. I mean, you could start with Mo at running back. I mean, they just leaned on him so much, and he was such a great Big Ten back. Just that type of guy that he was always the model of what I say. Nebraska's got to find that guy who takes that 1 or 2 yard run and it's a 4 yard run, and it doesn't have to be a 45 yard thing, but it's just consistent, a drum beat like that. And so, do they have the right guy to be that type of player? I don't know. I think that's going to be a tough game to start, but I also think Minnesota probably will go into that evening with as many questions needing to be answered as Nebraska. I think when you get to it, Colorado's, I think, is in a way worse spot, but we'll see. It just feels like I don't know how they're going to get their trenches in order by September, but good luck.
So let's say they don't get to, you have 60 open scholarship spots, which sounds,
I think, over that now. I think they're under 20 scholarship guys on the roster,
which is unbelievable, right? Let's say you could fill half. Can you imagine a Division I program not named Baylor? When Coach Rule takes over, that's operating in the 50s in terms of scholarships? I mean, that's Penn State days.
Oh, yeah. That's almost a self-imposed death penalty. We're getting close.
I'm
to
just
those
looking
numbers.
for perspective without hyperbole, right? So there's a couple of examples that come to mind.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting because there are people who are glad to jump on what's happening there with all the departures, and then there's other people who like strongly believe like just wait and see. And there is going to be like some momentum that's established because he will get some high profile names that raise their hand to fill some of those spots. And so there is going to be kind of that punch back to the narrative that's taken over the last 2 or 3 days there. But the thing I keep going back to when you talk about those numbers, it's hard enough. Think about it around here when Nebraska is like in desperate need of finding like 1 or 2 offensive linemen or defensive linemen, like in a portal cycle. People are kind of like, at the edge of their seat. Like last year, I mean, when Devin Drew and Stephon Wynn like committed, like we spent hours of radio on those 2 guys, like, like players like that. And Colorado's got to do that like times 4 or 5, like in the trenches. I think they got to, rack up like 6 or 7 or 8 of those type of guys. And I just don't know how you're going to pull that off when everybody in FBS has their elbows out for those type of players too. So
everybody wants the lineman, right?
Yeah, you may think
Boyle's a great old line coach, but he's going
to have a full room.
Got his hands full.
So we'll see. Maybe they'll pull something out of their backside and they'll come out there swinging. So you got always you never know in this world of college football anymore. But I'll tell you what, that looks like a very tough first year to me right now.
BC, we've kind of been talking about this the last couple of days. Damon's got his MVP from the spring game. If I gave you the chance to say, okay, either player or coach or position group or whatever,
I like where you're going.
Who was your MVP from the spring game?
I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to go to the guy who because I think it's a narrative changer for me too, is Prince Will. And the reason I'm saying him is, and I could put Cam Lenhart in that same category, is I feel like in recent coaching staff years here, there were certain positions where when a first-year freshman showed up, I always thought of it as like, well, we'll get back to you in a year or 2. I know I'm not going to see you on the field in a while. We'll be writing about you maybe in a couple years in the spring, but not right now. I just didn't see like any real chance for most of those guys to get on the field. And Rule does have a history, and some of this is because they had to at Temple and Baylor, but he's played the long game. He's been willing to let young guys get out there and get those game reps. And I know it's just a spring game, but the fact that Prince Will and Cam Lenhart were out there with the first team and you saw Prince Will making plays behind the line of scrimmage, I just think it was a reminder, like this could be a little different around here. Like you might see some of those players. I think we could see a couple of receivers like that who pop up in the summer who just got here. And because he said it in a quote about how we need a couple of those guys to flash. So I think they're an example to me of the first-year freshmen in this program perhaps being able to have a bigger say than they used to be able to have. And also I think that's a good thing in the portal era too, if you can get some of those guys, if they earn it, to have some sort of role, where they don't feel like they're just standing by the Gatorade bucket.
All right, BC, I'm going to go this is my best. Well, I think they got a black co-host now, but I'm going to go Monty Hall here with you, BC, and let's make a deal. I'm on the hype train. It's official. My MVP was Tony White. And I say that for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to see if I can convince you. He obviously answered some questions with his guys along the D line. We went from do they have enough bodies to having discussions on can they actually do hockey line changes. 3 young guys flash. That doesn't even count Seflua, right? In the secondary, right? Sincere. So you've got Sincere, you've got Mav, you've got Princewell, you've got Cam.
That's not even talking about the transfers.
Judy looks like a different player.
MJ Sherman.
But I'm going to double down because this is what the point that I was making Friday before the spring game started. I felt like offense had free reign. Offense was going to get to do what they wanted. They could go multiple formations. They could do whatever outside of maybe one package offensively that I think we'll see in the fall that they did not bring out Saturday. Defense, on the other hand, I felt like was going to be limited because they just played Minnesota in the bowl game, right? They held Minnesota to like 77 yards rushing in that bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
There's familiarity. So I felt like Nebraska would make a concerted effort to just do what Syracuse did.
To not give him anything extra.
To not give him anything extra. So he really was playing with less creativity, but he still functioned at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
Can I sell you on that?
Yeah, you can sell me on Tony White any day. I was a pretty big fan when they hired him, just excited about like what exactly does that defense going to look like around here. But also, as you paid attention to the spring, the first couple of weeks, it was a lot of talk about, okay, who's settling on what seat on the couch, basically. It felt like guys were kind of moving around and you didn't know what to make of it. But then there was that scrimmage just before the spring game, the Saturday before, and Rule came in afterward. And he's like, the defense, pretty much won the day. So then when you couple that with what you saw in the red-white game, which I would say, yes, offense, a couple drives early, but I mean, defense locked them down most of the game. I mean, that was a winning scrimmage by them. So you could very much sell me on that. And I'll add one other point to it. I was talking with the 4-star recruit, Kamar Mathuti, and he was a guy who honestly was expecting not to like Lincoln.
Sounds like McGahee.
Mm-hmm.
And he got here, and he did. He's going to come back in September, he said, for his official. But he said something about this is one of those guys who you've been around him, Damon. I'm sure on your like in high school where they're like 16, but they seem like they're 26, sort of the way they talk. He's sort of that way. And he had an astute observation about Tony White. He was just like, he couldn't believe how like much the guys wanted to already play for a first-year defensive coordinator. And he made a point, like, I know that he just got there like, 4 or 5 months ago, but those guys were dialed into like everything he was telling them. And it really stuck out to this recruit who was just passing by, like how much he had them at attention. And so, yeah, I'll buy what you're saying.
All right.
Iron sharpens iron.
We got some of the pot.
And
yeah,
he didn't know Coach Rule. I mean, you're operating on faith and goodwill.
Yeah.
And he let him bring some of his guys with him. Like, I don't know, man. I'm buying. Go back and watch Minnesota Syracuse.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm buying what
the Tony White
White's selling.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
That dude's a baller.
We got our MVP out of the way. I want to ask about any concerns that you have. Specifically, the ones I think we had were wide receivers. We're a little bit concerned about, and then just the general overall kind of sloppiness of some of the execution. Where's your concern level on those things? And did we miss anything that stuck out to you in a bad way?
I feel like I spoke the wide receiver thing into existence. I wasn't enamored all spring, and so maybe I'm just confirming what I wanted to be true.
I didn't think they shined on Saturday at all. I mean, I thought Billy Kemp was who you expected he would be. He's going to be like that security blanket guy for a quarterback. You just know is going to, rack up a ton of catches. Beyond that, the guy who impressed me the most, if you want to go like tight end / receiver, is like Borkercher. I thought
he's a starter.
Yeah, we need to not forget about him when we talk about. We always want to talk about 2 other tight ends ahead of him, but he's going to play just as much, it seems like. But yeah, I thought the receivers, they need to build depth, and I think that goes back to that comment Rule made about some of those guys, who are coming in. They might need a couple of them to at least have niche roles, or where they can step in and make a few plays at that position. I do think the fumbles are concerning because it wasn't the first. It was backed up to the other scrimmage where they also had this issue, from what we were told, with where it was just unforced errors. So you can tell it's real aggravating to rule, but that's something you got to get in check. The O-line, I thought the first group was pretty solid, but I know after the scrimmage, Rules was still bullish on his guys, but I do kind of wonder about like the 7th, 8th, 9th type of guys, like after you go down the list with the O-line.
BC, of the new faces or the familiar faces or new faces in different places, right? Corcoran, I think we're convinced is not a left tackle. Hopefully Teddy comes back ready to go. You had Menning that played a ton. You had Jacob Hood that played a ton. You had Judy that played a ton. You had Wynn that played a ton of guys that have, and Hood not so much because obviously he's coming in late. But of the guys, I'll even throw Deshaun Singleton in there. Of the guys that had kind of been around, that were moving around trying to get jobs, who's intriguing to you?
Singleton remains intriguing because he was a guy who I remember when Travis Fisher was recruiting him, he said he can play like anywhere in the secondary. He really believed that. And I just think he's a real versatile piece that at some point is going to matter for depth back there. And I don't think everything that's done over there has a little purpose to it. And so whenever a guy even pops up for interviews with us, it's not because it's like, oh, he's giving us an interview, but it's like, okay, there's a reason they put him in front of us. Singleton was up there with us just before the spring game. So I think that says something. Janiran Bonner, if we're talking about guys who move.
He was the easy one. That's like the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, he, to me, was like the story of the spring. If you just want to say, okay, who's the one guy who, if you think about it, like 2 months ago, the fan base, no one is thinking about. And in fact, if we're honest about it, is probably like, if people are going to have those conversations about who do you think is going to go in the portal,
it was him and Victor Jones, right?
Yeah, it'd be a guy like him. You would have put him in the category of whatever receivers are going in there this week.
100%.
And it was interesting after the scrimmage, though. He was like, wasn't a thought to him. That's what he said, at least. And he bought right into that hybrid tight end spot. And why wouldn't you? Because I can't think of why you would not want to play that position in football right now. And just like all that he gets to do, they're going to put him out wide. They're going to put him inside. He's going to be a fullback. I think he can do that okay. They just love that guy. And he's going to matter. And a month or two ago, I wouldn't have been thinking at all about him. So if you talk about one guy who had the biggest rise of anybody, it's him.
BC, you mentioned some of the recruits and how they were reacting. Obviously, you got the McGahee commitment early before the spring game started. Any other, I guess, what are you expecting to come to fruition from the group that was there on Saturday?
Well, I think what these weekends are about is you're trying to, for most of the guys, really get it in their mind, like, I got to come back here when this is for real. Or like some of them will be summer guys, but like Mathudi, for example, is an example of like, I got to see this place now when it's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And you're basically, I think in some of these cases, I would say surprising some guys where it's the cliche, like I thought it was just all cornfield type of thing, but you're going to have a bunch of those guys who come in in weekends like this, and they realize like, actually, this is a place I need to think a little bit more about. I maybe wasn't seeing this through quite the correct lens. And from what I've gathered from the feedback here and there is that they did pretty well at that message, and they always do, because I mean, you guys know what it's like around here. It's not exactly what people think when you get like within Lincoln or Omaha. I mean, there's stuff to do. This place, things are bouncing around, and especially during a game day weekend, and it jumps out to kids, and they're like, I'll give that another shot. So I think they succeeded on that front.
Could McGahee the fourth have committed soon enough? I guess they just kind of slow him down. Are you surprised, or is this stay tuned as the Florida schools may get involved.
Well, you never know. I never want to say anything's just, a guarantee with recruiting. But at this moment, when I talked to him a couple nights ago, he was just to the moon about it. So he's pretty fired about Tony White. He loves that Jack defensive role. He thinks it just fits him to a T. So we'll see.
BC, great as always, man. Talk later.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Coming up, Andy Kendeigh.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
1-0. That one's well hit, crushed into left field. No doubt about it. Matthews gets his first hit of the evening. It's a solo shot to left field. Score now 6-2 Nebraska.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream. I'm extra quiet, man. Controlling these volumes. Lord knows I should have went to like media school or something.
You and me both.
As we welcome in one of the good guys, Andy Kendeigh from Channel 7, AK4 Channel 7. AK, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, DB? What's happening?
Oh, I'm trying to make it, man. Just here with my man Ravi, trying to avoid the stray bullets and keep my head above water, man. I felt like you'd be the perfect guy to ask. I want to know like how I can be a part of what you're doing over at Channel 7 and be part of your big Red Zone expert team. Can I hop on board?
Yeah, you can come on over anytime, DB. You know you have an open invite. The only thing that you don't have is a key card. We got to get you one of those. It's the old text and call. Hey, I'm here. Let's open the gate for DB.
Man, it's so Fort Knoxian over there. It's intimidating.
You just got to come on a windy day. The gate's always open.
I love waiting for that thing to open. Beep,
so
beep.
it takes forever. You know, here, this is a funny thing. So it takes forever for the gate to open. And on busy nights, I will admit that sometimes I actually back up and go through the other way because it saves you about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Hey, AK, let's go right to last night, man. Pretty good crowd. I think it had to be the most at Tal, at least that I can remember. Close to probably 2,300. Good to see the hometown guy in Drew Christo. I think if it was a 65-35 split or 60-40 in Nebraska, I think Drew Christo had to represent about 15% of that with family and friends. But, I mean, he's coming around.
Yeah, it was good to see. He needed an outing like that. He's so talented, and for whatever reason, has had some issues earlier in his collegiate career. But you've seen it before, fellas. You've seen a talented player just need one outing or one performance or one game, depending on the sport, to build in your confidence. Say, yeah, I can do this. And last night, Drew Christo was on point. He, 8 strikeouts, and the big thing was his control was on point. And I think that's been the struggle for him the first season and a half here in college. But man, he keeps pitching like that. That is going to be a huge boost for Nebraska, which needs live arms in that in their pitching stable here as we go down the stretch.
3 probably top 150 guys in the draft with Matthews and Bovee and obviously Max Anderson. Not to be forgotten, how would you like to be a guy like Gordo? Taking a bump, midweek game. You've got to be steady Eddie, right? Like you can pencil him, man, 3 or 4 innings. He's gonna keep you in the game. He's gonna keep it close. I kind of like Gordon and his ability to just kind of hold it down for the Mavs. Like he gives you some comfort in a midweek start.
Yeah, and familiar surroundings, obviously. And, a game like that yesterday, fellas, it had to be fun for the guys. They're playing against dudes that they love to compete against. And, yeah, emotions can run high at times. But these guys all know each other. Shoot, Jackson Gordon's been playing against these guys for a long, long time. And it's been, and that's why something last night is so cool to watch. And that was kind of surprising, a good thing for omavs.com, but that was the only way you could watch it. But it's a cool event that, when you bring the state teams together and go battle, you could make a case that that's as spirited of a rivalry as any that Nebraska plays. And that crowd last night, you mentioned the 2,300. I think they had close to 3,000 last year, if I'm not mistaken, for the same matchup. So, when you bring Omaha, the Mavericks and the Huskers together, you're going to see some quality baseball, and it was good to see last night.
Andy, kind of a low-key important game for Nebraska because they're coming off of a tough weekend in Iowa City, hadn't beaten their in-state state school rival yet this year. It kind of seemed like this game was maybe a little more important for Nebraska than most midweek contests tend to be.
Well, especially when you consider they haven't played well against Omaha or Creighton. I mean, they have just not been able to put it together against the in-state teams, and don't think that people don't remind them of that. It's been all over the place, and even, it's interesting. A week prior, they're right on the cusp of turning the corner against Creighton, and then the Mother Nature steps in. But they did need that, especially after last weekend at Iowa. Getting outscored 25-7, looking horrible in the process. And with really, when you look at the big picture, you had all the reasons to go the other way because they come in as first place, you leave in the tie for fourth, and now everybody's saying, hey, your at-large bid chances are pretty much kaput. So the Huskers pretty well know that if they want to get a bid to the NCAA tournament, I think they're going to have to win the conference tournament in Omaha later. First, qualify for the conference tournament. That's no gimme, as we've seen over the recent years.
Yeah,
and then win that conference tournament.
Log jam at 7-5. They got to run the table against Minnesota this weekend. They've been good at home. They're bad on the road. I think 7-9 or 7-9-1 if you count the tie. So it's like you can't afford to look ahead to Maryland though, because that 3-game set at College Park with Maryland being where they are in the conference seems like it's going to be huge, but you need 3, in my opinion, against Minnesota.
Yep, and it's funny that how big of a series that becomes for Nebraska, and for whatever reason, Minnesota just has not been. They used to be one of the higher tier teams in that conference.
Remember when Nebraska first got there?
Absolutely, they were one of the kingpins in the Big Ten baseball, and now for whatever reason they're not. Obviously not playing well, and so I think you come in. You're looking at a team that's 4-8 in conference and 10-28 overall. You got to take 3 from them because you know that Maryland, who's vying for a conference championship up top with Indiana and Michigan right now, that that you're going to need to be at your best when you play at Maryland because and the thing is, guys, is that with the goofy Big Ten schedule, you don't play everybody and whatever and. Man, the schedule is favorable for Nebraska. That's why last weekend stung so badly because after Maryland, you play at Penn State, who's a seller, near the bottom of those standings, and then you come back and take your chances with a 500 Purdue team. So this is a must weekend for Nebraska baseball, and I think that's why last night was such a big momentum deal for the Huskers.
All right, Andy, switching over to football with you here. A few days removed from the spring game now. Had a few days to kind of decompress and process everything we saw. Is there anything that happened on Saturday or during the entire spring practice session that has changed how you view where the program is at heading into the summer and fall?
I think it kind of solidifies what we've been thinking. Myself in particular, I've been very impressed with the way that this coaching staff has been transparent and saying what they're going to do and building a foundation. And that's kind of what we saw the first building blocks on Saturday publicly. There wasn't many explosive plays, which kind of raised a few red flags for me, but some of that has to do with the defense that they were playing. And the guys, the guys that stepped up that I thought on defense, the defense played well. The guy that we haven't really talked about a whole lot was Malcolm Hartzog, and he was awesome on Saturday, I thought. And he's a guy, DB, who I know that you talked about during the broadcast.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that you can move all over the defense. He may be a safety, he may be a cover corner. He can do just about everything. And I think that's what really impressed me on Saturday. Guys like that who you can move around and you don't peg as, hey, this guy's a blank. Or Janiron Bonner on offense. Hey, this guy, well, sometimes he's lined up in the backfield. Sometimes he might carry the ball. Sometimes he might blow up a linebacker. Or sometimes he might catch a pass. I mean, guys like that have the versatility like that, I think, is going to help this team in the long run. And obviously, the big takeaway for me is Jeff Sims, the player. God, the guy can throw. Yeah. He can throw, and he proved that to me Saturday.
AK, it's not by coincidence. Don't think Hartzog's position isn't one we watch extra close in our household, okay?
I bet,
we watch Hartzog quite a bit playing that field safety spot. Just saying. Have a good week, AK. I know you'll stay busy.
Thanks, fellas. Be good.
That's Andy Kendeigh. Coming up. Are we getting Buffalo? Will we get Buffalo? That'll be at the top of the hour. Up next on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning. A lot of folks that look out for us, right? Zipline being one of them. Dear old Nebraska U, one of the great neutral ales that you can have from Zipline. Always taking really good care of Coffee and Cream. So once you hit the beanery and you get done, maybe seeing the folks at Dyer Law after you give them a call or visit the website at dyer.law and you're thinking, man, I could really relax. Well, why don't you just commingle and come home and have some Zipline? How about that? And you got options too, right? They've got they got their Kolsch IPAs. You could go dear old Nebraska U. We've got plenty of options with Zipline, but remember, do that in the confines of a safe spot because you don't want to have to give the folks at Dyer Law a call for
that reason.
Any personal needs at 402-393-7529. The trusted professionals. Great website. It's pretty easy to use. I was just dropping some of their teams' names the other day, giving people a hard time. Oh yeah, I was basically talking to Sauter because his feelings were hurt. And I was like, hey, listen, you need some folks over at Dyer. They're just right over there off of South 117th Street. I think it's
I don't know.
It's Arbor. It's Arbor.
Okay, yeah.
Which is one block north of Center.
Yeah, between Pacific and Center for sure.
Let's go.
I would agree, Damon.
Let's go. I'm not great with directions, but I've gotten better in my old age. So you can give the folks at Dyer Law a call or visit dyer.law. You've got me stuck. So there's a handful of things that we've talked about over the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the simple versus easy thing.
Yep.
Right. I think DJ Rizak, very, very good confidant, Pally, kind of put that in my ear, right, with kind of managing my personal life. He said it sounds simple, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, then you were hitting me with these sports terms. He's like, it sounds simple, but it's not that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm supposed to be on this simple versus easy thing.
Yeah.
But now you've thrown me for another curveball that I kind of want to cheat up in the box.
Yeah.
And see if I can hit. But maybe I just got to keep my hands back. Right. Stay where I am and just go with it. With talent versus useful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's night and day.
I think of the lore that's surrounding Keisei Tominaga.
Yeah.
Right, which I think has surprised some people with the development over the last couple of days. And by the way, did you see that your guy was on the NBA draft list?
Who, Trey?
Testing the waters. Kalkbrenner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna. I get it.
I think it's just. I mean, honestly,
feedback.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how you feel about Keisei, right?
Yeah. So we'll get to the talented versus useful thing. I actually think this means he's coming back to Nebraska.
Do you?
Yeah, because he's not going to get drafted this year.
All right, I agree.
And I don't think there's a huge market for him as an NBA undrafted free agent either.
Mm-hmm.
If he was going to leave, I think he just signs overseas back in Japan where he would make a ton of money because he's a huge celebrity there.
Yeah.
This to me is a good sign for Nebraska because the only way for him to make it to the NBA, if that's his ultimate goal, which it probably is, it is for most guys that play at this level, is to go back to Nebraska with the feedback that he got from the NBA to try and show some of those things, right? My guess is they probably want to see him play a little bit of point guard because of his size. They probably want to see a little bit more of his own shot creation, not just coming off of things. Probably want to see him in some pick and roll situations as a ball handler to see how he handles those. Off the top of my head, that's what I would be looking for if I were an NBA team, even considering a guy like Keisei Tominaga. But he's an interesting case study in what we're talking about in the talented versus useful thing, because until there was a desperate need, kind of underwhelming at Nebraska. right? First
he
year
was
and
super.
2/3.
He was super. Or even the first half of this year.
That's the first year and 2/3 of his career here.
He was very polarizing
because he would have these flashes. He would have a 3-minute stretch where you're like, oh man, that guy's great, and then he would kind of disappear, and you wouldn't see him, and you wouldn't think about him, and then they had all these injuries, and they're like, well, we have no one else to score the ball, and it kind of goes to what I was talking about and what you brought up with Karl Anthony Towns. In a college basketball game, you're going to score 65 to 80 points most of the time, somewhere in there. Somebody's going to get 15 to 18 of those, right? And the guy that gets the opportunities is probably going to have that. It is a really difficult thing to figure out with Tominaga because there is some talent there, right? Obviously, he's got a shooting ability. He's got a kind of a knack for coming off screens, for getting himself open without the ball. But if he's your best player, how good are you? Because that's kind of where this talent versus usefulness thing comes down to, right? If you want to boil it down to a question, if X player is playing Y role on your team, then you are how good?
So let me ask you something just the other way.
Okay.
Oh, there's this thing that guys are super useful.
Oh, it goes both ways.
And maybe not ultra talented because
100%.
they help you win games.
100% goes both ways.
Because some people are just winners.
Yeah.
Like they just win.
So the guy that I immediately thought of, because this is in right in my wheelhouse, is Draymond Green. I don't think he's super talented. I think there are things he is talented at. I think he has a knack for certain things. But in the grand scheme of an NBA player, Draymond Green's talent is probably below average.
Are there football guys you can think of like that?
The first one I thought of, and maybe this isn't fair, because maybe he's more talented than I'm giving him credit for, Max Duggan came to mind immediately.
Oh, I kind of like that. Although he showed he had wheels.
He does. Again, when I say more useful,
and it's relative,
yes,
right?
Right.
It's
He's not Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Do you know who I think of right away?
Who?
Mike Brown.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
For as good as Mike Brown was, and he had good measurables, not elite.
Yeah.
But he's an elite level player.
You could. I mean, there's a million guys. You see it a lot at quarterback, right? Like Joe Burrow is a really good example. He's talented. No, listen.
I actually think he's talented.
I do too. But compare him to Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
He's a step down from that level of talent. I will take him for sure over Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. I'm taking Burrow over those two guys 100% for sure because of his usefulness.
Are there positions where you need baseline talent?
Absolutely.
So I think running back right away.
Sure.
I'm like,
it's really hard to like grit your way into being a productive running back. But
I've seen some great. Like I look at Bob Sanders.
Okay.
We study him a ton.
Yeah.
We like Bob Sanders. We like
safety out of Iowa.
Yeah.
For the Colts.
Yep.
Injured a lot, but really, really good when he was playing.
Yeah. Kind of undersized.
Yeah. He's like 5'9", right? Really undersized.
Yeah.
For that position.
I look at a guy like Earl Thomas.
Okay.
Good talent, but there's just something about those guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Their production and their usefulness outweighs their talent.
Yeah.
And usually it's the other way, right? Usually you get a guy who's not as...
Kurt dropped me the Kyrie Irving reference.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of vibing, although Kyrie played a critical role in winning on a championship.
Yeah.
Even hit the big shot.
But ask the question, how good are you if he's your best player?
No, I understand that.
Because that's
why I told him, like, I'll listen.
That's his talent level.
I wouldn't die on that hill when he said it. I was like, okay, I'm vibing with you, Kurt. Like, I'll listen because it's only happened once in his career.
And it can kind of be fluky. That could have been fluky, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, they probably should have lost that series if Draymond doesn't get suspended, if Steph's not injured. Like, you want to.
You know who's close to being in that discussion?
Who's that?
If they don't get over the hump. So there's two teams still left in the NHL, Michigan Land State right there, with Marner and Matthews in Toronto, struggling to advance in playoffs, and Connor McDavid, who's widely regarded as the best player in hockey.
But what
it hasn't manifested itself at all
into wins.
Yeah.
into success.
You got me vibing here. Talent versus usefulness. Let's go to Michigan Lance. Lance, good morning, man. What's up?
Man, good morning, fellas. I really like that segment about, was it talent versus productivity?
Kind of. Usefulness is what we called it, but yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I like that. It kind of tributes, DB, and we have plenty of talks in the barbershop when I talk about the expansion of the NBA and how to me, it hurt the NBA and it started going into the individualism in the 90s where they had the one star and then a bunch of role players behind them. Whereas you look at those 80 teams, like they were really good total teams, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you got somebody like a Big Cat, Lulla, and your guy in Atlanta, Trey. Yeah, like those guys shouldn't be leading individual teams. They should be on teams that somebody else as the leader. You know what I mean? Not that they're role players, but they're just more of a number 2 or 3 option, which the number 2 or 3 option in the 80s, when it was less teams, those were great players.
So
the James Worthings, the Mark Aguirre with the Dallas Mavericks. Remember that team? Orlando Blackman, Derek Hartman.
Yeah,
Sam Perkins. Like that team was second in the West. That was a 53-win team. But then when expansion, all those guys spread out, and they didn't have those same teams and careers. You know, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing. You know
who couldn't play with Jimmy Butler, and my man Ravi thinks Jimmy Butler's not a legit one? Karl Anthony Towns.
That's true.
With Jimmy,
right? But that
and I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think Jimmy's a number 1 though. Like I think Jimmy's a number 2.
He could. Today. Nah, I doubt it. Lance, appreciate the call. We're up against.
Hey, thanks, fella.
Buffaloes up next, and Robbie's guy Deion Sanders with Mr. Howell up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Throughout the afternoon, we'll visit later on with Hurrdat Sports as the PAT is blocked and it's scooped up. And they can return this. It's a live ball. Jeremiah Brown bringing it back the other way for 2 points for the defense. Do we factor that into our scoring system?
6 degrees of separation as we welcome you back to Coffee and Cream in the morning. Ravi Lulla filling in for Andrew Rogers, who is going to be our draft correspondent as he's at the draft. So we'll talk to him tomorrow, and he'll be back next week. This is kind of weird for me as a guy that played in the 90s. Our biggest rival was Colorado. It was very heated. Just happened to be that the rerun was on last night of the 30 for 30. Canavis McGee and those guys continuing to hate on Nebraska. And a guy that wore number 3 in high school because of Darian Hagan as an Omaha kid.
Yeah.
We're now whose favorite player growing up was Deion Sanders. It's kind of weird that we now are all in on Colorado, the school that changed Nebraska's trajectory after they let it get away in Boulder a few years ago. The program did not recover from that colossal meltdown before Tucker takes the job at Michigan State. How about the irony? I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm excited to talk to Brian Howell, one of the really good ones whose life probably changed quite a bit since the announcement of Deion Sanders. He's Colorado Buffalo's beat writer for the Boulder Daily, doing big things. Brian, good morning, man. How in the world are you?
I am good. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. So can I stay right there just for a sec? Like, in the last 3 months, life dramatically changed, kind of changed, much ado about nothing. Like, how's it been for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's way different. And, this is a good example. I've done more radio appearances since Deion got hired than I probably did the previous 5 years. 2016 was maybe the only thing that matched it because they were pretty good. But, people actually want to talk to me because I cover the Buffs, and, even Denver radio didn't really ever have me on. So it was, and I don't care if I'm on, but it tells you there's interest in the program in Denver even, let alone around the country. So, it's kind of crazy.
Early on, let's not still off the field, right? We saw what happened in the spring game, the revenue, the ticket sales. Safe to say, without judging what's happening on the field, that it's paid dividends already with the hire?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the spring game itself. I don't know what their final tally was, but they had to have made between tickets and parking and concessions maybe close to $1 million. And they've never made anything off of it because it's always been free and nobody shows up to it anyway, so they don't open up concessions. So they've probably made a good chunk off of that. Plus you have the merchandise sales and the ticket sales are through the roof. So yeah, it's been pretty insane so far.
Brian, let me ask you that. I want to get some math out of the way real quick so we can get our numbers straight here. So 36 guys have left the program since the 15th. Is that number right?
Yes.
Okay. So I know we've only got 16 returning scholarship players from last year. I know there's still a crop coming in the summer. In kind of your in the math that you've done, how many guys are they looking to have to bring in between now and August to be, to get to 85? Like, what is that number?
Well, I have them at currently 63 scholarship players, which means 22 open spots.
Okay. So they've got 22 guys or 22 spots that are not going to be filled by anyone that's currently committed or signed to the program.
Correct. So, that's a whole signing class.
Right.
They have to do. They've obviously already had 2 whole signing classes in this period. So they're essentially going to end up with what used to be 3 whole signing classes.
So let me ask you this. What level of concern do you have? And I'm not going to even get into the why guys are leaving or, are they leaving by choice or getting pushed out or whatever. I guess just from a pure number standpoint, how concerned are you about the depth by the time we get to the fall when there are still that many holes to fill?
Yeah, I look at it and, it's Deion Sanders and he's always, I guess, done what he said he's going to do. But I'm skeptical when I look at it. I'm like, is there really 22 guys out in the portal that you can find to make this team better? And they've got so many holes right now with all the guys they've asked to leave that, they need players everywhere. I'm like, are you really going to find 22 guys in the portal that can help this team win this fall? And maybe he will, but I look at it and say that's going to be tough to do. So I don't know how they're going to do this.
So Brian, walk me through what the offseason looks like, because a lot of those guys aren't here yet, right? So we're kind of extrapolating, but for all intents and purposes, not including early enrollees, you have 40 spots roughly, right, that aren't accounted for in the offseason, right? Those are guys that will be here in the 2023 class, plus what you'll have to make up. What happened? What does an offseason look like?
I guess a lot of, my name is whatever name tag passed around. It is crazy. A lot of their what they've already signed or committed has been here in the spring, but it's most of their high school class is not here yet.
And there's 16, not including Juwan because he decommitted, but so you have 16 or 17 high schoolers still to come, right?
Correct. And Juwan was actually at 24, so he wouldn't have been here till next year anyway. But they had six early enrollee freshmen that showed up at. They've got 5 receivers that are freshmen that are joining the team this summer. There's still a handful of recruits that will be coming in, or transfers that are coming in, plus the 22 guys that they have to fill. So, yeah, it's probably going to be close to 40 newcomers that come this summer out of the 85 scholarship guys.
So, Brian, let me ask you this. So, the obviously the hype and the energy around Colorado has been very positive for the most part since hiring Deion Sanders. But it seems my question is, how quickly do you think he needs to start winning in order to continue that positive momentum?
Well, he's got to be better this year. I don't think they necessarily have to get to a bowl game this year to keep that positive momentum, but I think they got to win 4 or 5 games and be competitive in the rest. To at least show that they're a much better team. I do think that a lot of what they're doing, and he's never said this is just my guess, but I think a lot of what they're doing is more pointed towards 2024 than it is this year. But he would never say that because he wants to win now, and I think that's his goal. But I don't think they necessarily even have to get to a bowl game to show that they're on the right track and keeping momentum going. I think that it was so bad last year and even the year before that if this team's even competitive, it'll be like, wow, this is new.
So it's interesting, Brian, because I'm kind of seeing it firsthand. Just being from here, growing up here, familiar with Coach Boyle. He's recruiting a couple of our players at the high school that I coach at here in Omaha. My kiddo happens to be one of them. So that I get the sense, and I'm watching the staff and I listen. It's on paper, The staff is fantastic. I mean, like if you just look at the quality with the Kellys, and the staff looks big time legit. How much do you think, now that you kind of watch this, is their expectation level about what they thought they'd be getting when they said yes initially to come with Coach Prime?
Well, I think a lot of coaches, when they come into a new spot, are maybe a little surprised at the roster, and it's different than what they thought. To me, seeing all these guys enter the portal tells me that they might have been a little surprised at, how bad the talent level was, or what they thought it was. I'm not sure that they truly believe they would be overhauling the roster this much. Although Deion did tell me back in December, he said, "Look, I had 70 new players my first year at Jackson, and we're looking to overhaul this thing." And so they're going to be right at around 70 new players. So that was kind of his plan from the start. So, but I think it's probably a bigger overhaul than maybe they expected.
Brian, I want to ask you, what's something you've learned about Deion Sanders that you weren't expecting to be true?
Well, I've had a couple opportunities to, meet with him one-on-one. They were both back in December when I covered the Celebration Bowl down in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the biggest thing I learned was when I got to meet with him, there was no cameras or anything like that. And he's pretty down to earth and a pretty laid-back guy when you get the cameras off. And I actually enjoyed talking with him. I think that there's a different person off the camera. Not that he's fake or anything. I just think that he's more laid back and down to earth off camera than he is on camera.
When you're kind of watching the personalities that have to mesh, I mean, Kelly's been around Saban, and you have three minimum former head coaches. A lot of the chemistry and culture that you're trying to build starts with the staff. How do you like the meeting of the minds and the whole style versus substance? I get the sense there has to be a lot substance than we're maybe seeing when the cameras are rolling to assemble this kind of staff.
Yeah, and that's probably another thing. When your previous question, that when I talked to a lot of people at Jackson, they would tell me there's a lot more substance to Deion than what it looks like. He's obviously stylish. He has the flash, but the point that was made to me a lot of times was you can't have that flash without the substance. And so he's got that. Every person you talk to on the staff that has worked with him, they say they love it, and that he's a brilliant guy as far as football goes, and not just playing corner, but that he's a brilliant football mind, and that they love working for him. And I think he's built a really good staff. It's actually 4 out of the 5 offensive assistants were head coaches in the past in college. So it's a pretty impressive staff on paper, like you said, that they've got a couple younger guys that are still fairly new to coaching, but I think it's a good mix of young and veteran coaches. And when you talk to the staff, they all love working together, and they love working for Coach Prime.
Brian, and I'm curious if you have a sense for this, because we obviously we're talking about the players leaving and who's coming in to replace them. What's the sense you've gotten for how many of the guys that are leaving are doing so because Coach Sanders is kind of saying like, "Hey, I don't necessarily see a future for you here with the program," and how many are leaving because
it's not what they thought? Yeah,
kind of like you said earlier, being with Coach Prime is not what they thought it was.
I would guess, especially this latest round this week, I think almost all of them are leaving because they've been told to.
Okay.
I think the ones that, if there were ones that didn't want to be around this program, I think those were more guys that left back in December, and the ones that kind of stuck it out throughout the spring, and especially through the spring game, I think that they wanted to be here and they were buying in, but then were told, "Hey, we don't really have a spot for you." And I've heard the basic message is really not just, you need to go. It's more of, we're going to be bringing in guys at your position that are better, and you're probably not going to play a whole lot, so take that for what you want.
So even a guy like Lamonius Craig, or is that kind of an isolated example?
Yeah, he's probably the one exception, and he's the only guy out of all the 33 or whatever it is that have transferred since the portal opened in April 15th. He's probably the only one that surprises me.
All right. So let me ask you this, because I'm figuring this out with Nebraska, the fan base, and kind of connection with Coach Rule, right? Like, I feel like part of the immediate glove affair has been because there's a connection, right? Like, I think they feel like he represents what they want in a leader in the program, and maybe it's because they're starving for a winner. Maybe it's because he just is who he is, and that we'll see over time, right, without any games in the win-loss column. But with Coach Prime, when you look at the fan base's temperament, what it has been, what it used to be, what it's capable of being, with all the things that's going on in Boulder, do you like that potential cocktail of Coach Prime and that temperament versus what the fan base craves?
Yeah, and it's actually very much the same as what you're talking about with Rule, is that these fans are just so tired of losing, and it was so awful the last couple of years that they have 100% embraced what Deion is, and that they've embraced the fact that, I mean, this fan base still can't believe that they're the talk of college football, you know? Like, are you kidding me? Like, they were so far off the map that, you know, it's kind of insane what's going on with Colorado, that they're just so excited. I mean, they can't wait to win, be on the map. There's a little twinge of arrogance, you know, coming from the fan base because Deion's there. Like, we'll be fine. All these players leaving, whatever. Deion's going to get some great players in here. So I still need to see the products on the field before there should be any arrogance from the fan base. But there was that little twinge of it that, like, hey, we've got some swag now, but they got to win.
Brian, let me get you out of here on this, because you're the perfect guy to ask with all the sweat equity, right? I mean, you've done this a while. You've seen a ton. Does Coach Sanders change the way that the media can, will, or maybe most importantly, should cover the program, knowing he's probably a guy that is not afraid to reprimand or heap praise either way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed in a lot of ways. Part of it is the access is not the same as it used to be, and you know, we're used to around here we've always had really good access to assistant coaches and players. The CU Sports Info staff has been really great with us in that, and this was honestly throughout the spring. This is the first time I've gone through an entire spring or season, whatever it is, without a single one-on-one interview with a player or a coach. And it was, you know, the players we got players most every day, but it was always the guys that Deion handpicked for that day for us to talk to and things like that. So it's different. And, you know, I think that, you know, people are worried about, we don't want to ruffle feathers with Deion and maybe lose some access or anything like that. So I think people maybe on pins and needles a little bit there, not just try to feel him out a little bit in the early going. So it's different for sure.
Brian, fantastic stuff. Looking forward. Listen, week 2 doesn't seem like that far away. We got to get past Minnesota first, but would love to have you whenever you're available to give us some previews.
Yeah, the bus got to get past TCU down in Texas. So.
I'm not even going to get into the schedule. The former player in me won't allow me to get worked up over schedules, but yeah, yours looks a little daunting at first blush.
Yeah, it's week 1, 2, and then another rivalry game in week 3 with CSU, and then Pac-12 starting with Oregon and USC. Good luck, Deion.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for your time.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Love the honesty.
Yeah. No, that you have to be that way, though, right? I mean, if you get yourself up and you're like, you know, yeah, the first 5 games are kind of tough, but maybe we can go 4-1, and it's like you're gonna have 70 new guys.
And I just think, like, doing the job.
Yeah.
Like, you better have some conviction and you better be secure, because I could see you getting called out.
Yeah.
But, you know, publicly talked about.
Yeah. Deion will talk about anybody.
And just for trying to maybe do your job.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, it's probably not going to be for the weak-minded, right, to cover that program.
Sure. Yeah. And
he's going to read the paper. Hey, weren't you the guy or gal that wrote about that said, like, I would imagine there's some of that.
Well, I think there's way more of that with most coaches and players than we realize, and certainly more than they admit.
Did you hear Sam McEwen about 3 weeks ago when he said Nebraska's sports information guys and the head coach addressed the media before anything even jumped off?
Good morning.
Oh no,
yeah, set the expectation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We nipped that in the bud right away. Like, this is what we won't be having.
Absolutely.
Everything else is fair game, but don't do this. Like, and I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think so. I
think.
The thing.
Don't apologize.
Just real quick, the thing I'm most intrigued by this is I can't wait to see which players become like Coach Prime in the way that just in his mannerisms.
Well, his son, number one.
Yeah, but just the other players, all the way around. It'll be a very interesting transformation over the next year to see how all that falls out.
I mean, it's really easy to get kind of caught up in the hype, right? And I agree with you. I think there has to be more substance there than we see. Otherwise, I don't think it would have worked at all at Jackson State. I don't think it would have worked at all in terms of getting new players to Colorado. But there is a certain amount they just have a math problem right now.
Yeah.
In that, I believe Brian has on his Twitter, they're down to 3 scholarship defensive linemen. Yeah. 3. That is the fewest you can have, and still put 3 scholarship, and still put a full scholarship D line on the field, depending on what kind of defense you want to run, right? So, we were talking about, is Nebraska going to have some impact guys? How much do we like the rotation? This isn't even the same conversation that Colorado's having right now, because they have 3 scholarship defensive linemen on the roster today.
I know. He gave you the number 70.
Yeah, 70 new guys. Yeah. Nebraska is going to have.
I said 60 and thought I was
a little high.
A little high.
70 new guys. It has to be 69 because they're down to 16 returners right now. So 69 is the lowest number it can be.
Mm. And that's if you max scholarships. Some coaches don't carry 85.
I think he would.
We've heard long about that.
People get really upset about it
at Nebraska.
I guess here's where I have problem with what I'm seeing with Dion.
Yeah.
Is I believe there is more to him than meets the eye. I believe when Brian says he's way more low-key off camera than he is on camera. But a lot of the on-camera stuff the players see too. And a lot of it's not flattering to them. Mm-hmm. We saw his very first remarks to his team where he's like, a lot of you got to go. And a lot of them are gone, right? But you don't think the new guys have saw that too? Because, yeah, some guys are supremely confident and they say, yeah, I'm going to come in. I'm going to be the new guy. But what makes you think he won't be saying that to you next year?
I get it.
That's
part of it.
And for me, I understand you have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's a no cameras conversation for me.
So
that's what I really struggle with.
The antithesis of this is I think it's just the opposite with what's going on at Nebraska.
I agree. They're almost polar opposite situations.
And I'm not even trying to pump sunshine. I just know diligently how much they've worked on this NIL and the numbers, and how Coach Rule hates the transactional part of the NFL where he doesn't want to run guys off. Mm-hmm. He knows he's got 10 in the bag where you can sit guys. Mm-hmm. He actually has a couple guys that even ask for position. This I know for a fact, right? Because I know 2 of the guys personally asked for position changes so they could stick around. Mm-hmm. It's no coincidence that schools that are good at this is started way back. I talked about Trev trying to build an athletic department and an infrastructure that's family oriented, diverse, all encompassing. The meal strategically, feeding the players how they want to eat, still being healthy, building the locker room the way that it was. When you can create an environment where people don't want to leave because it's a good place to be, that's your best way to offset the portal. And maybe their NIL isn't super high end in terms of bagging top recruits because it's not who they want to be anyway. But remember, they're still in the process of sorting out who's my retention acquisition folks, who are my baseline, let's just do this when we start looking at collectives.
Yeah.
Nebraska's in a little bit better spot with the middle class.
Sure. Yeah.
Than I think people think. It's not a bad place to be. And the players like the staff. I'm dead serious.
That goes a long way.
I believe that in my heart of hearts. Coming up, a little 2 for you, 888-638-4876, and we'll play a little catch-up as well.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Favorite games and one of
where I have to write stuff.
Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Now one of Damon's favorite games and one of Shane's favorite games.
Is this the game where I have to write stuff down?
Well, maybe not so much Shane.
Yes, Shane. This would be the game.
Yes, it's 2 for you.
All right, let's
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream. 888-638-4876. We can play two for you. Brought to you by Dingman's. Visit dingmans.com. Great locations all over town. The main one that I like to stop at, 120th and Maple. Shane got a new vehicle, so they didn't get the chance to work on his. But the way the game goes, you pick two of the three folks' voices you hear, Ravi, myself, or Shane. We ask you questions. You get a chance to win gift cards to Hail Varsity Club.
I like gift cards.
Yeah, you can double down. You can win up to $40. Ooh. Can you imagine spending $40?
You get a lot of food here for $40.
Yeah, I let Micah eat the wings.
Oh yeah.
That I got to
From
go
yesterday.
He had them.
Those smelled
last
good,
night because
too.
he didn't get done with practice and he got home at like 8:15, I think, or something like that.
Oof.
And tonight they go till 9. They're 7:30 to 9.
Dang.
I know. And he's still mad over track practice, but he'll be all right. Allegedly, his track coach is out to get him.
You're mad.
It's like, Dad, 10 100s, man. We're working on starts. I got all these little scrapes because we run on concrete. Well, buddy, figure it out. Figuring out if we don't get anybody to call, that's fine. We're going to continue this. Dingman still knows we love him, and we talk about him a ton, so there's plenty of bang for the buck in that one. Plus, Shane has a weird affinity for Darcy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He makes no bones about it.
Are you saying I need to go get my oil changed?
No, but that would be the exact opposite of an iced blonde, like my man's coffee over here.
Right there.
Because that is like super brunette.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cooler than a fan, though.
All right,
Cool.
I'm out.
Ice blondes only for Shano.
No, wait, though. So, Shane, we can't use your old car sound effects because you got the new. We can't use that anymore because you have a new vehicle.
New vehicle doesn't sound like that.
I was gonna say it's a little quieter.
Do you know why he wasn't going to buy it?
Why's that?
He was trying to reconcile the engine capacity. He's like, man, V4. Do I want to?
It's got a 2.4 in it, though. I don't know if I wanted a 4-cylinder versus a 6-cylinder, but
Listen,
but it's got 180 horsepower, so I'm down with
It's
that.
a Compass.
I wanted to maximize and get the best out of my return for what I invested in it, for my time,
Shane,
my effort, and what I paid for it.
If you put a 6-cylinder in a Compass, that thing would take off.
Well, it wasn't necessarily going to be a Compass. I mean,
You'd be in outer space.
You were looking for engines type first, right?
I was looking for engine type first, and I actually wanted the Trailhawk, is what I wanted.
Ooh.
I don't even know what that is.
It's one of the trim packages on the. You wanted the
bigger model.
Is the Compass Trailhawk? Is that a 6?
I gotta Google now.
I don't think they make a 6 in the Compass, man.
Like I said, I didn't.
I thought you weren't
necessarily-
I thought you weren't a gearhead.
I didn't necessarily want
Who, me or him?
Compass, but
You.
I wanted a.
I know Jeeps.
But I
Dude,
wanted
that
a Jeep.
Trailhawk is pretty.
So I used to have a Cherokee Trailhawk, which I really, really liked.
Okay.
And then I traded in for that guy right there, the Grand Cherokee, because I needed the third row for my dogs.
Here, that GMC truck that's sitting out there. There's somebody out here in a black
Like
pickup
chromed
truck,
out.
and it's got chrome.
Yeah, it
on
looks
the,
nice.
on the front grill with a black Nebraska license plate.
It goes pretty hard.
That thing
Yeah.
is sweet.
But I'm just saying, if he put 6 cylinders in his Compass,
Again, not a chance I could park that thing.
that thing would go off into outer space. Like if he catches a hill wrong, he's just taking off.
That sound
Which
you
would
heard,
not be good.
that's his car. Shane, do that again.
That's the old one?
Yeah, Shane. Okay, so we buried the lead here before we get back to sports. Is that an automatic?
That car was a stick.
No, your new car. I know
it's
you're
an automatic. Yeah.
So
I don't even think they make manual Jeeps. I think you have to like
dude,
special order.
he is a manual guy. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Well,
I'm
you
okay.
can still like shift it over and go into manual mode.
What do you do with your hands and feet now? Do you just rest it on the gear? Where's your gear shift? Is it on the
No, I just have
console?
both hands on the steering wheel. Like,
Well, look at him going 10 and 2.
well, yeah,
Are you
If I
okay?
can
Are
reach
you
it.
okay with driving with one foot now?
yeah, that's fine. it's a little bit more relaxing. It's a little bit.
He's just cruising now. He's just kind of laying back.
That's interesting.
Laid back.
Yeah, I got the seat rolled back a little bit.
Oh gosh. Coming up, we're going to talk Northwestern.
I mean, I got to get some 6.4s for it, but that's okay.
Rolling in my 6.4. Doo-doo-doo. That's actually a year, make, and model, not necessarily tires. But it's all right. We were devils in the details. He's
funny.
He's doing his thing. So there are some things off here. So what was bothering you so much about the transition if you compare and contrast Colorado and Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, and maybe I'm putting too much stock in this, but it's a hard thing for me to get over. Is I understand you were going to have a level of turnover and overhaul in the Colorado program. And it's not like Nebraska hasn't. They're going to flip half the roster this year, right? Like, it's not like Nebraska's running it back with the same dudes, okay? But the conversations around it are so different. And I really had a hard time with the way Dion just came in and was like, yeah, none of you guys are good enough. Get out.
We're going to be bringing my... Did you feel that needed context? Because we kind of only heard the snippets.
No, there was a longer video.
So some of you guys are thinking about the portal. Then he got into the bringing my own luggage and that kind of stuff.
There was a longer video, and the vibe of that video is most of you guys are not good enough.
Well, they are 1-11. I
understand that, but that's a private conversation. Why are the cameras there for that? Listen, I'm okay with he's a self-promoter. That's like, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not hating on him for that. But you don't have to have that conversation with the cameras there, because that's kids' futures, right?
Okay.
Like, you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds for the most part. You're talking about kids that, I mean, they're kids, right? Probably their dream since they were little has been to play Division I football, Power 5 football. Probably a lot of them dreamed about playing for Colorado. There were a lot of local kids in that room at the time, okay? You can be honest about where they're at and where your program's at without being disrespectful of people, right? Honesty does not require animosity. It doesn't require mean-spiritedness. And I'm sure that's not how Dion meant it. I hope that's not how Dion meant it. But that conversation, why is there a camera anywhere near that conversation?
All right, so caps lock aside, let me just give you a glimpse into his personality. This is his last two posts. One he pulled off of Twitter, one he put on IG. He said, everybody wants to sit at the table and eat, but ain't nobody wants to work. I'm just reading it how he wrote it, all right? But ain't nobody wants to work to provide everything on the table, including the food. I don't believe in luck. I believe in hard work. The harder and smarter I work, the more opportunities present themselves. Either you run today or today runs you. I run today. Any problems with that at face value?
Nope.
Because that's kind of how he runs his program.
That's fine.
Second post, a couple of down, he goes, the reason most people have problems with people they can't control is because you didn't put them in check the first time they got out of pocket. Do you have any problems with that on its surface?
So it seems like he's playing a little bit of a victim there to me. It's like, oh, people are hating on me because I'm this maverick. It's like, that's not why people are hating on you.
That's not it.
That's not why I am, at least.
Okay.
My problem is entirely to how is he treating people, right? Those are people in his program, whether he recruited them, whether he didn't, whether he thinks they can play at that level or not. Those are people that he has been trusted to take care of and treat well. That doesn't mean he has to keep them.
Okay.
Don't hear me saying that he has to keep those guys that went 1-11. I get it. Okay. You have to overhaul a roster when it doesn't fit what you think you need to win. That doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful about it.
So if you're a player, is there any part of that where you're thinking, you know what? I could gravitate towards that.
I'm sure some guys, we've seen it.
Is that the temperament you want, though?
That's not the temperament I want. I'm not going to blanket statement say that's not the temperament anyone wants. Because in my mind, what I hear is, okay, if I fall out of favor for whatever reason, because I don't know what the reasons are necessarily, because he had just met these guys. He hadn't seen them work. He hadn't seen them try to work. He had just met these guys, and he's saying this, right?
All he knew was 1-11.
That's exactly. So he didn't know boo about these guys. If he knows these guys and then he's starting to have those conversations, I can understand that. But this is about how you treat people, to me, not about, hey, he's being hated on because we can't control it.
Yeah, because fundamentally, if I read this out loud, a lot of y'all problems come from not putting people in their place the first time they tried you. Fundamentally, I don't really have a problem with that.
I don't either, but I don't think that's what's happening to Deion.
Okay. All right. There's a lot in there. Glad we got you for the rest of the week. Because there's some points in there, but we're going to talk Northwestern. Speaking of one win, one team was the others a year ago. We'll talk to Louie next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome you back. Last segment of the day, my man Ravi Lulla filling in more than admirably for Andrew Rogers, who will be helping us cover the draft tomorrow on site. Right down the road, I feel, in Kansas City. As we welcome in one of the good ones. He always takes good care of this. He is the publishing and managing editor at the Wildcat Report. Louie Vaccher joins us to talk all things Northwestern. Louie, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Yeah, it's like small world, right? Northwestern staff just at my son's high school yesterday, getting their recruiting game right in with a couple of other schools. I see that hasn't really changed for Northwestern. They are continuing to revamp. They spend a lot of time in Omaha, Louie. I kind of like seeing new faces and new places.
Yeah, they're hitting the road. That's for sure. I mean, they have some personnel issues to address. I will say that for sure. And I think they got to do some work in the portal as well. And the other thing is, you got 5 new assistant coaches on board now. So you got 5 guys in their first year. So they're out there kind of shaking hands and kissing babies and getting to know people.
So, Louie, I'm not so on the surface. So this is just on the surface. I'm not saying college football playoff runs. But is there a similarity? Is there a Harbaugh-esque turnaround where the prodigal son, he's there, he can be comfortable, can come and go on his own accord, decides, okay, hey, listen, I need to do something different. He revamps the staff, tries to get a little bit more innovative, makes some changes. Is there something in the tank similar that Coach Fitz can draw on that we've seen work at a couple of other places in the Big Ten?
Well, he's done it before, right? Like in 2019, they went 3-9, and then 2020 they won the West. During the COVID year, they went 7-2, finished 10th in the country. So he's done it before. I do think, though, they've got some personnel issues that they have to address. I don't think they can make that big a leap this year. I think the West, as usual, is kind of wide open, but I don't think Northwestern is quite there. They've got holes to fill, and they've got lots of improvements to make on both sides of the ball. They've got a new defensive coordinator and a new system. But offensively, this team scored 14 points a game last year. So they've got some work, to do on both sides of the ball. I'd be shocked if they could pull that kind of turnaround again. I mean, I think they'll be better record-wise, but I don't see any that kind of leap happening. I'd be stunned.
Louie, you talked about personnel issues on both sides of the ball. If you had to pick 1 or 2 position groups that you've got the most concern for, what are those, and what are the chances of them being where they need to be to improve on last year?
Yeah, well, number 1 is defensive tackle, without a doubt. This spring, they had 2 scholarship defensive tackles on the roster and 2 other walk-ons. So they had 4 guys total at the position, and Northwestern's really had problems stopping the run the last couple of years. So that's priority 1. They've got to go out there and get, 2 or 3. They do have a couple freshmen coming in this year that look pretty good. They're pretty excited about, but they've got to add some veteran big boys up there. They need to recruit about 600 or so pounds of defensive tackle for next fall, I think. So that's number 1 without a doubt. I'd also like to see him get a wide receiver, somebody with some speed, and a veteran quarterback. They feel good about Brendan Sullivan, but he broke 2 bones and
that was a
hurt his
sternum,
knee last
right?
year.
How do you play with a broken sternum?
Yeah, how about that? I just found that out. I was interviewing him during the spring, and he broke his hand, he broke his sternum, and he hurt his knee. So he's a tough kid. They like him a lot, but with Ryan Helinski's coming off a torn ACL as well. He had surgery, so he was out this spring. So, they feel pretty good about Sullivan, but they don't have a whole lot of depth there. I think it'd be nice for them to pick up a veteran quarterback.
Quietly, you've rebuilt the facilities. They look fantastic. It overlooks, it's a pretty deal at Northwestern. And small world. I know Coach Braun just because, again, he's recruited in the area when he was at NDSU. I kind of know what he's about in terms of his substance. As the DC, for a defensive guy, you have to kind of like, at least on the surface, Louie, the meshing of the personalities. No nonsense. He's a developer. He understands eyes for talent. Like, that has to be a good mix on paper, right, with Coach Braun?
Oh, yeah, I think so, without a doubt. I was really impressed. I got to interview him. Yeah, he's a very personable guy, easy to talk to. I mean, he sat there and answered our questions, just one-on-one. He's very conversational. And from what I've heard, talking to some players, his coaching style is much the same way. I think they feel very comfortable about him. And they're going to kind of get away from the old system of Jim O'Neill. He described his system as going to be about 50% of what they ran at North Dakota State, about 30% that's similar to what Northwestern ran under Mike Hankwitz for all those years. And then about 20% is holdover from Jim O'Neill's offense. That, and they've kind of simplified things, and players think they can play a little bit faster. They're doing less thinking, more reacting, and just flowing. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism there. They've got to address some needs, especially on the defensive line, but I think they'll be better defensively this year.
Louie, kind of a big picture question for you here. Coming off of a couple disappointing seasons, even 3 of the last 4 seasons have not gone super well. People seem more and more willing to discount success that people had during the COVID year. I guess, how far away are we from there starting to be some talk about Pat Fitzgerald and what his job security is like?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain people that, it's like whispers right now.
Mm-hmm.
People certainly sense that. Like you said, 3 of the last 4 years, they're on an 11-game losing streak. They lost 11 straight games last year. They're 4-20 over the last 2 years. So it's been pretty bleak. And, Fitz will tell you himself, too. He doesn't like the changes going on in college football. NIL, I think he's on board with, but with the transfer portal, Northwestern has a lot of obstacles there academically about getting kids in and things like that, that they're hamstrung. Patrick Ryan, who's the big donor, the benefactor for Northwestern, whose Ryan Field is named after, and Welsh Ryan Arena and the Ryan Field House, he's still 100% on board with Fitzgerald. I don't think that's an issue. I think the athletic department, the administration still loves him. If he has another season like last one, though, there's going to be some talk. There's no question about it.
So,
and the other thing that I think they're building a new stadium, and Pat Fitzgerald is a big part of raising that $800 million. He's a big a guy that attracts a lot of that money and the money to build the facility too. So there's a lot of things. I don't think he's in any danger or anything like that. But, there are some grumblings among the fans for sure.
Louie, how good can a guy like Porter be?
Cam Porter, yeah, I'm really excited to see him this year. He missed all of last or 2 years ago, right? So in 2020, he was like the rising star as a freshman, came on late in the year, looked really impressive. Then he tore his ACL, missed all of 2021. Last year, you could tell he wasn't quite himself. And the feedback I've gotten is that he's got that burst again. And he's a power runner. I think that's what they're probably best suited to. They don't have a lot of speed on the outside. They'd like to run the football, ball control, and he's a guy that can move the pile and between the tackles kind of runner. So I'm really excited to see, Cam Porter back to 100% and being the guy we saw a couple years ago.
So it's interesting, just in following Northwestern through Big Ten Media Days and getting a chance to talk to so many of your guys since Nebraska's been in the conference. They felt like they had turned the corner. This was probably 16, 17, 18 in terms of recruiting and getting over the academic mystique and admissions. But the more I'm around this recruiting deal, and I listen to you talk about admissions, I know it's an issue at Wisconsin as well with admissions trumping scholarship offers and things like that, like the Dukes and the Stanfords and Vanderbilts. Is that something you could ever see the presidents and those border regions coming around on with Northwestern to level the playing field? Or will it always be like that, given Northwestern's tradition as an academia university?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think Fitz wants it to change. You know, he's a believer in that. You know, he's a product of the system. And really, you know Northwestern's history, right? It's pretty bleak long term. You know, they've been pretty good under Fitz, and they've had some good years since the 90s. But before that, it was a wasteland. And I think what that academic standing and that degree really enables them to recruit. You know, those are the kids that they appeal to. And without that, they're, a bottom of the barrel kind of team. I think it's something that they sell. It's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision, and it's a Ivy League level education. They're I think they're 9th ranked academically in the country by U.S. News and World Report. So it's something that they sell. That's who they are, and I don't think that's going to change. No. Does
the Evanston Champaign thing? Does the Illinois and they got the best of you obviously a year ago? Does that factor in at all in the compare and contrast of expectations? Is what Illinois is doing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But Bielema came in. I mean, they beat them pretty good 2 years ago, and then last year, 41-3 at home. It was brutal. So yeah, Illinois seems to have Brett Bielema's got their number right now, and they don't recruit that often against Illinois, but they'll start losing kids, I think, over time. So I don't think it pays dividends that much in recruiting, but that's it's a rivalry game. They point to it every year. Northwestern had won 6 straight. The Land of Lincoln Trophy. That's their only trophy game, so that's a big deal to win that. And now they've lost 2 in a row, pretty embarrassingly. So that's something that they'd like to settle the score on.
Doesn't get any better when it comes to Northwestern, Louie. We appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's Louie Vaccher from the Wildcat Report. That's another show with Coffee and Cream and my man, Ravi. Lulla will be back tomorrow, same channel.